Sun Chang, who had just retreated a few steps, began to feel something strange. The earth trembled, as if something was about to break through the ground. The group of people who stayed behind also sensed that something was wrong. When Sun Chang approached Zhang Yi just now, no one followed him, and the cameraman only pointed the camera at Sun Chang and Zhang Yi, but the two of them were too far away, and they could only see the two talking vaguely. No, there are 3 people, and one is Dr. Zhao who is in a coma. Quick, cover Captain Sun. The members of the Special Operations team aimed their weak hands at Zhang Yi, wanting to cover their captain's retreat. However, Zhang Yi still stood in place and did not move, but Sun Chang felt that the ground under his feet trembled even more. Let's go! Sun Chang shouted, and he noticed that only the ground under his feet was trembling, and the exploration team was still calm. Seeing this, Sun Chang used his strength to sprint the exploration team. Boom! After an earth-shattering sound, behind the retreating Sun Chang, a 5-meter-long monster burst out of the ground. Sun Chang also fell to the ground because of the movement of the monster unearthed. Ah! Hearing someone in the exploration team exclaim, Sun Qing, who had just gotten up from the ground, saw someone stretching out his fingers, trembling behind him. Captain, run! The members of the special squad roared angrily, and they all took out their rifles and shot at Sun Chang's back. Bang bang bang! The bullet hit the monster behind Sun Chang, making a series of metal collision sounds. Sometimes you know that there is something extremely scary behind you, but you can't help but want to look back. Although Sun Chang is a top special soldier, he still can't escape the eternal law of human beings. Taking advantage of his teammates' shooting, he quickly turned his head to look, and suddenly a chill came from the soles of his feet. What kind of monster is this? The overall length is more than 5 meters long, and if you count the broken tail at the buttocks, it is about 8 meters. The monster was covered in rust, large and small, but surprisingly, this monster didn't want the armor of those soldiers to corrode into its original shape. The monster in front of him, Sun Chang recognized what it was at a glance. Tigers, to be precise, the long-extinct saber-toothed tigers. A saber-toothed tiger made of steel. Soon, the special squad's shooting was over, but the steel saber-toothed tiger monster didn't do much damage except for some dented bullet marks. Roar! The steel saber-toothed tiger monster roared angrily at Sun Chang as if it had intelligence. At this moment, everyone in the underground space realized what the momentum of the tiger-roaring mountain forest was. Long time no see, old man. Just when everyone was stunned by the steel saber-toothed tiger's long roar, Zhang Yi appeared under the saber-toothed tiger's legs. He gently stroked the steel saber-toothed tiger, his eyes full of nostalgia. Just now, when Zhang Yi was dodging the shooting of the special squad, he sensed that something was attracting his qi underground. After the special team stopped shooting, he tried to communicate with the thing that absorbed his own qi underground, and finally found that the only combat puppet was one of the 3 combat puppets made by Xuanyi in his dream. As for the other 2, they were completely destroyed in that battle. That is, when he was trying to wake up the saber-toothed tiger puppet, the events in the dream began to gradually affect Zhang Yi's thoughts, and this happened when Zhang Yi angrily took the initiative to attack the official forces. The steel saber-toothed tiger looked down at Zhang Yi who was standing beside his legs. Although his appearance and height were different, the qi exuded by this person was very familiar to him. Exactly the same breath as his director. The 4-meter-tall steel saber-toothed tiger lowered his head and rubbed it on Zhang Yi's head affectionately. This. When everyone in the underground space saw that this suddenly appeared steel monster and the kidnapper were so close, they all looked like they were finished. There have been no activities for more than 400 years, Xiao Bai, you can have a good time playing with them. Xiao Bai is the dream Xuanyi who got the name for this steel saber-toothed tiger. Roar! Hearing this familiar name, Xiao Bai roared excitedly, and then rushed towards the crowd. Ah, that monster is rushing over. Su Yao exclaimed, and the crowd began to panic. The photographer who was originally holding the camera stopped shooting, hung the camera around his neck, and began to run in the direction of Bio Village. The others also began to flee, leaving the 12 special fighters, including Sun Chang, standing in place. As soldiers, explorers who come to the underground space can escape, but they can't. Bang bang bang. The sound of the steel saber-toothed tiger fighting with the 12 special soldiers was endless, and Zhang Yi saw that they could no longer tolerate attacking him, so he turned into a group of people who followed the fleeing people step by step to Bio Village. Seeing Zhang Yi following behind, everyone immediately ran faster. This is an existence that can dodge bullets and recall monsters from the ground. What can they ordinary people do with this kidnapper's opponent? Strange to say, the exploration team used their strength to escape. Zhang Yi walked unhurriedly behind, and the distance between them not only did not widen, but got closer and closer. Captain! A Special Forces member noticed Zhang Yi's actions and shouted at Sun Chang. Sun Chang followed the gaze of the special team member to watch the ball, and saw that Zhang Yi was chasing the exploration team, so he wanted to withdraw from the organization. However, before he could point his gun at Zhang Yi, he was thrown to the ground by the steel saber-toothed tiger, and a large blood stain appeared on his forehead. Because the photographer hung the camera around his neck, netizens in the live broadcast room could only see the ground moving in the screen and began to become anxious. I'll go, there's really a monster in this underground. What's the matter with this photographer? I can't see anything. I hope the exploration team is okay. Good guys, the current live broadcast is much better than the sci-fi blockbuster. Hell, that kidnapper is not an ordinary person. Upstairs, do you have access to the internet? Ever since that kidnapper dodged from a rifle shot, I knew he wasn't an ordinary person. Terrible, I didn't expect such a monster to exist in the world. People from outside can't enter the underground space yet, so everything can only be done by the exploration team. In the underground space, Zhang Yi followed the exploration team unhurriedly. Behind him was the sound of the 12 Special Forces members fighting the steel saber-toothed tigers. Soon, Zhang Yi caught up with the exploration team. Seeing Zhang Yi passing by them, the originally nervous and scared mood was a little better. It turned out that the kidnappers were not coming for them. Passing over the exploration team, Zhang Yi did not stop, and continued to carry Dr. Zhao towards Bio Village. Seeing that Zhang Yi didn't pay attention to them, the exploration team naturally wouldn't have nothing to do. Looking at Zhang Yi's departing figure, none of the people in the exploration team dared to move, knowing that Zhang Yi walked into the village and disappeared from sight, so he dared to gasp for breath. Not far away, the steel saber-toothed tiger that was fighting with the special team also stopped his movements as Zhang Yi disappeared. Buried underground for more than 400 years, the energy core of the steel saber-toothed tiger had long been damaged in the war 400 years ago, and the reason why he was able to fight now was because of the qi that Zhang Yi had sent to him as an energy source. Now that the gas has run out, it is no longer possible to continue moving. Seeing this, the special squad that was fighting with the steel saber-toothed tiger also stopped firing from the rifle in his hand. Team. Captain, what's going on? Why is that big guy not moving? After a battle, the 12 special soldiers were all painted to varying degrees, among which Sun Chang's injuries were the most serious. Not only was a piece of flesh wiped off his forehead, but a deep wound on his thigh was also cut by the claws of the steel saber-toothed tiger. You are on alert. I'll check it out. Sun Chang commanded as he barely endured the pain in his body, and then he wanted to drag the right leg in his hand towards the steel saber-toothed tiger. This time. Captain, let's go, the injury on your leg is more serious, and you can't move, in case something happens, it's not easy to escape. One of the team members said, regardless of whether Sun Chang agreed or not, and walked directly towards the steel saber-toothed tiger standing still. You. Hiss. As soon as Sun Chang wanted to speak, a pain came from his thigh. The iron saber-toothed tiger wasn't far from them, and the soldier soon came to the saber-toothed tiger's side. He tapped the steel saber-toothed tiger's limbs with the butt of his gun, and after a long time he didn't move, and then he was relieved. The soldier then made a gesture to Sun Chang, indicating that the danger was removed. At this time, everyone was completely relieved. However, in the next second, Sun Chang remembered that the kidnapper walked towards the professors. "It's over, the professors won't have an accident, right?" With apprehension, Sun Chang turned to look at the exploration team. The kidnapper was gone, the professors were safe and sound, and his pounding heart slowed down. Sun Chang waved his hand at the exploration team and motioned for them to come over. It's not that he doesn't want to go, it's that the injury on his thigh makes it difficult for him to move. Captain Sun Chang, are you alright? After the exploration team came over, Professor Yuan looked at the steel saber-toothed tiger standing motionless not far away, and then asked. "I've got some injuries, but it's out of the way. Captain Sun, don't move yet, I'll clean your wounds." At this moment, a girl stepped out of the exploration team. She is Fang Yan, the team doctor in the exploration team. "That monster is buried low, there will be a lot of bacteria on the body, and the rust will also infect the wound." Fang Yan opened the first aid kit as she spoke, and began to treat the wounds on the special team members one by one. Once again, the photographer picked up his camera and started the live broadcast. Song Jipeng appeared in the camera again. "Ladies and gentlemen in the live broadcast room, I'm back again." Saying that, Song Jipeng pretended to smile a little. He now regrets coming to the underground space for a live broadcast. It is important to get to know people, but life is even more important. The special forces fought that big monster just now, and they finally won. But our hero also suffered a lot of injuries. Immediately, the cameraman pointed the camera at the special team member who was being treated, and also made a close-up of the scar on Sun Chang's leg. "I'll go, the bones can be seen in this injury, and I hope that the country's support can arrive as soon as possible. Has the kidnapper been caught? I feel sorry for Brother Bing, I didn't even blink my eyes with such a serious injury. This is a real man, I don't want some little fresh meat to act and scratch my fingers, so I have to call for an ambulance to pull me to the hospital." "Then you must call an ambulance for first aid, otherwise the wound will heal when you go to the hospital. Compared with that little fresh meat and the national soldiers, you are insulting these soldiers who are born and died. Monster, let's see that monster." "Yes, I only saw a rough outline," and then the photographer put the lens down. Seeing that many people in the live broadcast room asked to see the steel saber-toothed tiger, Song Jipeng glanced at the photographer. The camera then pans to the steel saber-toothed tiger. "Too far, closer." Song Jipeng said that although the camera is aimed at the steel saber-toothed tiger now, the distance is too far, and the live broadcast room is not careful. The photographer was a little embarrassed, he didn't want to, and he didn't dare to get close to the steel saber-toothed tiger. Who knows if that big family will suddenly have a recovery action and slap themselves into a pulp. Hurry up, the netizens in the live broadcast room are starting to urge, how can we achieve the effect of live broadcast like you? Song Jipeng himself didn't dare to approach the steel saber-toothed tiger, but this didn't prevent him from letting others pass. The photographer is still hesitating. "Oh, it's okay, didn't our special forces team members already check it just now?" All right. The photographer gritted his teeth and began to approach the steel saber-toothed tiger puppet. "Stop! Don't shoot that monster!" Suddenly, Sun Chang roared. This was not what he wanted to say, but Shen Guoyang's voice from the Bluetooth headset in his ears. 12 heavily armed Special Forces soldiers were unable to inflict damage on that monster, which was already an extremely dangerous weapon. How can technology like this be watched in the live broadcast room at will? Therefore, Shen Guoyang gave Sun Chang an order that no one should approach the steel saber-toothed tiger puppet. Why? Song Jipeng asked suspiciously. Because that monster is now a state secret, no one is allowed to divulge it. Photographer, you can come back, be careful not to press the camera again. Hearing Sun Chang's words, the photographer was on the verge of amnesty, and moved away at a speed dozens of times faster than when he approached the steel saber-toothed tiger. 666. You still don't want to see it? Obviously the kidnapper was summoned from the ground, why did it become a state secret? It's like, I want to see monsters. I finally got something out of the underground space that interested me, but I didn't let me see it. Everyone understands, after all, that monster is something that can fight against 12 special soldiers. Now that Black has not entered the center, a monster has come out, will it be dangerous next? The kidnapper hasn't been caught, and the underground space is inaccessible, so I hope the exploration team's next operation will go smoothly. In the live broadcast room, netizens were discussing wildly. Since Zhang Yi appeared, the underground space that was originally explained by the exploration team began to be confusing. Leader, what are we going to do next? After bandaging the wound, Sun Chang asked Shen Guoyang on the other end of the phone. Stay where you are, wait for us to arrive. It took a long time for Shen Guoyang's voice to come. Okay. Sun Chang agreed with Shen Guoyang's arrangement. The manager had a big battle just now, and they didn't have a lot of ammunition left, and the soldiers were all injured to varying degrees, so it was the best choice to stay in place and recuperate. Everyone, sort it out, let's stay here for the time being, and wait for support from above. Sun Chang said and instructed the less injured warriors to guard the surroundings, especially the place where the steel saber-toothed tiger puppet was. One is to prevent someone from approaching, and the other is to prevent this monster from protruding and hurting people again. Captain Sun, I don't agree to rest in place. After hearing the order to rest in place, Professor Yuan immediately came out to oppose it. She blushed and said, that kidnapper has entered the ancient village, according to his performance just now, there must be some unknown secrets in this ancient village, now we are resting, I am afraid that some secrets in the village will be destroyed by him. Yes, we must hurry over and stop the kidnapper before the secrets in the village are breached. Captain Sun, let's go, otherwise this exploration may end in vain. The people in the exploration team who belonged to the archaeology department persuaded. This shows that gamblers can't walk when they see dice, and perverts can't turn their eyes when they see beautiful women, and 90% of the ancient villages in front of them have an unknown history, but they can only watch others enter. No, in our current state, if we meet that kidnapper again, there will be only one way to die. Sun Chang is very determined, if he does not get support, he will never agree to enter the ancient village. This is for the safety of my own team, but also for the safety of my fellow professors. Aren't there still a lot of bones to be excavated here? You can explore this red area first, and when the reinforcements arrive, we will set off immediately. Sun Chang persuaded that when he saw the corpses of the Qing army on the ground, he thought of this attention, let these professors find something to do first, and they should be able to be honest for a while. This. Professor Yuan and they were a little hesitant, although the corpses of the Qing army under this land were a mystery, but the bigger mystery was still in the ancient village in front of them, and it was still on the kidnapper. Rest assured, there are hundreds of army handles at the entrance to the underground space, and even if that kidnapper gets anything in the ancient village, he will not be able to escape, and it will eventually fall into the hands of the state. Professor Yuan, just listen to Captain Sun Chang's opinion, and besides, Captain Sun Chang is injured like this, and he can't act. Su Yao on the side persuaded that she really didn't want to face that man, and now when she entered the ancient village, she was undoubtedly in the mouth of a tiger. This. Okay, let's finish excavating the bones of the Qing army underground first, and then make plans. There was no way, more than half of the team wanted to rest in place, and she couldn't force it. Subsequently, a group of people began the previous excavation work again. Sun Chang found a place where no one was there to recuperate, and actually slaughtered Shen Guoyang through Bluetooth headsets to communicate. Leader, are you still there? In. When will you be able to send someone into the underground space to support us? Soon, although we haven't studied what the invisible partition at the entrance of the underground space is, according to our continuous attempts, the power at the entrance is gradually decreasing, and at the current speed, we will be able to enter the underground space in about half an hour. Okay, I see. Sun Chang got an answer from Shen Guoyang, and his originally gloomy mood was a little better, and he suddenly felt that the pressure was not so great. By the way, before the monster came out, the kidnapper said something, and at that time suddenly the signal became extremely bad, and I didn't hear what he was saying. What did the kidnapper say? Sun Chang carefully echoed the scene of Dan. He said, sorry, if it is useful, can the 3,000 names of Bio village be resurrected? If it is sorry, then there is no need for the 100,000 troops to be buried in the ground. Speaking of this, Sun Chang swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Bio village, 100,000 troops, buried here. He looked at his feet, and then at the expedition team in the distance as they cleaned up the corpses. Sun Chang felt as if he had grasped some important information. Are you sure he said that? Just when Sun Chang was shocked by his discovery, Shen Guoyang's voice came from the other end of the phone. I'm sure he said that, and... Sun Chang looked at Zhang Ye's expression and continued, and his expression at that time was jealous and angry, his eyes were full of murderous intent, and his hostility towards me exploded instantly, just like two people before. At that time, he had a feeling of madness. Well, thanks to Captain Sun for the clues I provided, I will arrange for someone to investigate where Bio village is, and try to find the trace of that kidnapper. Wait, leader, I always feel familiar with this Bio village. Familiar? Have you ever been to Bio village before? No, but there's an inexplicable familiarity, and you make me think about it. Good. Shen Guoyang stopped talking and asked Sun Chang to think about Bio village. 2 minutes passed, and Sun Chang kept recalling the memories of Bio village. Wait, leader, I thought about it. When I first came to the underground space, I vaguely heard the exploration team talking about Bio village, 100,000 troops, or something when I was exploring the path in front. What, did you mean the exploration team said something about Bio village? Well, I didn't hear the specifics clearly. You go and ask about the following things about Bio village. Shen Guoyang arranged, and after hearing this, Sun Qing slowly got up and limped to the exploration team that was busy exhuming the corpses. That Professor Yuan, I have something I want to ask you about. What's the matter? Professor Yuan stopped what he was doing and looked at Sun Chang in surprise. He and Sun Chang have nothing to do with each other, they can only be said to be members of the same expedition team, so what will Sun Chang consult with him? I heard you talk about Bio village before, what is the matter with the 100,000 army? Oh, that's the nonsense that one of my former students said. Can you tell me about it? Absolutely. Professor Yuan said, took off the plastic gloves on his hands, tidied up his clothes, and began to talk about Zhang Ye's answers to questions in the previous class. The matter is not complicated, it is very simple, and Professor Yuan quickly finished the matter. In this case, I'm sorry for you, Professor Yuan. It's okay, do you have any questions about this? Professor Yuan looked at Sun Chang, and he always felt that there was something about Sun Chang that he didn't know. It's nothing, it's just that I suddenly remembered what you said before, and I didn't hear it clearly at the time and was a little curious. After speaking, Sun Chang turned around again and returned to his original place. I feel like there's something hidden from us. Professor Yuan looked at Sun Chang's back and muttered a good way, and then threw himself into work again. Leader, did you hear what Professor Yuan said just now? I heard you. If you want me to say, there is definitely something wrong with that student named Zhang Yi, or maybe he knows some information that we don't know. Well, I'll arrange for someone to investigate this student named Zhang Yi. Say, could this be the Bio village? Quite possibly. When the support arrives, there will be a team that will take your place, and you will come back to this special team for treatment. Follow the instructions. After speaking, Shen Guoyang did not make any more sounds. Now he is arranging to go to Beijing City to investigate Zhang Yi at the same time. Soon, Shen Guoyang received detailed information from Zhang Yi from childhood to adulthood. Zhang Yi on the information can be said to be mediocre. He has not done anything illegal or taboo, and he has no outstanding performance. The only thing that makes people shine is that he was admitted to Shangjing University, the first university in the Dragon Kingdom. Ha! Suddenly, Shen Guoyang noticed that something was wrong. This classmate Zhang Yi went to the First People's Hospital of Shangjing City to see a doctor, and it was Dr. Zhao who treated him, that is, the person kidnapped by the kidnapper in the underground space. Knowing the existence of Bio Village and having also contacted Dr. Zhao, how can there be such a coincidence in the world? Could it be that Zhang Yi is the kidnapper in the underground space, or has some connection with the kidnapper? Quick, send someone to find this classmate Zhang Yi. Shen Guoyang was very excited. If Zhang Yi was not in the school now, then the kidnapper in the underground space was 100% Zhang Yi. Finally found a useful clue, and finally stopped spinning around like a headless fly. However, he was not happy for 2 seconds, and after a phone call on the street, his whole face turned into a bitter melon again. Director Shen, our people found the student named Zhang Yi in the dormitory of Shangjing University, and learned from him that he knew that the matter in Bio Village was told to him by a doctor from the First People's Hospital of Shangjing City. Director Shen, what are I going to do next? Do you want to bring Zhang Yi back to the bureau for interrogation? Director Shen, Director Shen. Shen Guoyang's voice was not heard on the other end of the phone for a long time, and he didn't know what was going on, so he could only ask anxiously. I'm here. After a long time, Shen Guoyang picked up the phone and said, what else did that Dr. Zhao say to Zhang Yi? No, according to Zhang Ye's account, he often falls asleep and dreams at every turn recently, so he went to the neurology department to see a doctor, and it was Dr. Zhao who treated him at that time, and during the treatment, he chatted a few words when he had nothing to do, and Dr. Zhao told him some stories, one of which is a story about the death of 100,000 Qing soldiers in Bio Village. Then one day he had a problem with drowsiness in class, and then he was woken up by Professor Yuan and asked a question, and he told the story that Dr. Zhao told him as the answer. Okay, I got it. That Director Shen, do you want to bring Zhang Yi back to the bureau to investigate? It's just a student, since he has been investigated, he is not going to be taken away. This will have a bad impact on a student, but it is enough to arrange for 2 people to keep an eye on Zhang Yi at all times at the same time. Okay, Director Shen. After speaking, the phone rang busily, and Shen Guoyang put down the phone weakly. Gotcha, the clue is broken again. Just when the people from the National Security Bureau were looking for Zhang Yi in Siokyo University, the real Zhang Yi who was far away in the underground space felt it. Sure enough, I was still found. Before setting off to kidnap Dr. Zhao again, Zhang Yi was ready. Because Bio Village not only told Dr. Zhao, but also mentioned it once in front of the whole class. But he was able to capture the whole class and bring them to Bio Village, right? Fortunately, he only mentioned Bio Village once in front of the whole class, and did not tell anything else about the dream. However, Dr. Zhao was different. Zhang Yi told him the sound of Xuanyi in his dream completely. As long as he is a smart person, he can definitely guess that in fact, Xuanyi and Zhang Yi in the dream are inextricably linked, and even Xuanyi will refine Zhang Yi. So when he left Shangjing University, Zhang Yi left behind a temporary refining stand-in puppet. Time is of the essence, the stand-in puppet only has 2 days to survive, and it cannot be attacked in any way. Even the action of swatting mosquitoes will cause the stand-in puppet to collapse. Before leaving, Zhang Yi took the case certificate and asked for a 2-day vacation, and he was alone in the dormitory to prevent anyone from investigating him, and he could also create an alibi to clear his suspicion of kidnapping Dr. Zhao. No longer thinking about the matter of being a substitute puppet, Zhang Yi shuttled through Bio Village, turned left and then turned left, a very familiar appearance to Bio Village. Soon, he was in front of a huge black coffin. Ladies and gentlemen, I've come to see you. It's been more than 400 years, I hope you don't blame you. In the future, you don't have to go to the company to deal with the tail work. I also fell out with the boss of the company, and a month's salary was gone. Peace of mind code word. Zhang Yi put Dr. Zhao on the ground and looked at the huge coffin stupidly. This time I came in a hurry, I didn't prepare anything, this pot of wine is a tribute to everyone. As he spoke, Zhang Yi took out a gourd from his arms, the gourd was filled with liquor, he opened the stopper at the mouth of the gourd, and sprinkled the wine around the huge coffin. There's one last bit left, and the two of us do the rest. Zhang Yi walked to the front of the huge coffin, where a person sat cross-legged, and his appearance was Xian Yi in a dream. He. Looking at Xian Yi, who had been dead for more than 400 years and had no change in his body, Zhang Yi smiled bitterly. Brother, you have made me miserable, I am just an ordinary college student, and now I have become a kidnapper, oh no, plus attacking the police, endangering public safety. If only I didn't have that dream, I'm still my ordinary person, I don't have any magic skills, and I don't have any Bio village. Sometimes, I really feel that I am still in my dreams, everything I am experiencing now is illusory, and when I wake up from my dreams, I can still go to class quietly and be my ordinary person. I used to fantasize about how different I was, how gorgeous I was, but now it seems that ordinary is a blessing. The liquor entered his throat, and Zhang Yi seemed to have awakened the chatter attribute, and kept talking to Xian Yi's corpse. In the end, Zhang Yi's eyes became complicated. Brother, what kind of relationship do you think we have? Friends, past and present lives, or are we ordinary people who have never met or talked to each other? Zhang Yi shook the wine gourd in his hand, but found that there was not even a drop of wine, so he immediately threw the wine gourd aside. Sometimes I really envy your life in Bio village, there is no intrigue, you can show your abilities at will, there are many brothers who are willing to be born and die for you, unlike modern society, calculating and calculating. There are 40,000 teachers and students at Beijing University, but I can't find a real friend to talk to. I'm a person who likes to be stubborn, and when I can't figure out the situation, I like to stay in a corner and observe, just like when I first went to school, sitting in the back corner of the class, observing everyone's words and deeds, and observing their personality changes. Sometimes it's not good to see too thoroughly. This time, I was forced to start recklessly, I didn't want to be a guinea pig, I didn't want to be someone else's research object. I don't believe in any past and present lives, I am me, you are you, and I will be a friend with you in the future. So we've been friends for a long time, it's just that I know you, but you don't know that there is such a person as me. Okay, I'm going to get down to business, the entrance to the underground space can only block the people outside for half an hour, I guess they've come down now. After speaking, Zhang Yi stood up. Dr. Zhao, don't pretend to be asleep. I know you're awake. When Zhang Yi and Xian Yi were talking, he had already found that Dr. Zhao was awake. The reason why he didn't break it was that he also wanted one more person to listen to, and besides, he was already here, and he was about to erase Dr. Zhao's memory of himself, and he still cared if he overheard this? You. Dr. Zhao was hesitant for a long time, not knowing what to say. It's really shocking what Zhang Yi said just now. It took a long time for Dr. Zhao to regain his ability to think. Who are you? Me. Zhang Yi removed his disguise. You should remember this look, right? You. Are you Zhang Yi, the Zhang Yi who came to me for medical treatment? At this moment, Dr. Zhao had figured it all out, no wonder this person was so familiar with the conversation between this person and the dead person just now. This is the Bio village in your dream that you told me about earlier? Yes. The person across from you just now is Xian Yi? Yes. So the dream you told me about is real? Yes. So you can also refine your skills, you can also fly the eaves and walk the wall, and you can also refine all kinds of magic weapons? Yes. That. So what are you bringing me here for? Dr. Zhao doesn't know why, he is just a doctor. What did he bring her to Bo village for? You want to kill people. Thinking of this, Dr. Zhao's body began to tremble with fear. His son had just been born, he hadn't come to watch his son grow up, he hadn't hugged his grandson yet, he didn't want to die. Dr. Zhao, you and I have no grudges, and you are not a bad person, why should I kill you? Killing people is a crime. But isn't it illegal to break into someone's office and knock someone unconscious and kidnap them? Dr. Zhao muttered quietly, and then he thought of something, which was a story in a dream that Zhang Yi told him before. When Xian Yi built Bo village, he used creation to make a person an alien, but it didn't take long for Xian Yi to find out that this person's heart was not right, so he used the creation furnace again to eliminate that person's ability and erase the memory of Bo village. You brought me here to erase my memory? Yes, don't worry, I'll make it up to you. Dr. Zhao himself is not wrong, and he blames himself for telling Dr. Zhao what happened in his dream. Therefore, Zhang Yi decided to use the creation furnace to help him awaken his abilities when erasing Dr. Zhao's memories. Of course, whether you can awaken and succeed depends on Dr. Zhao's own qualifications. You can't do that. That's my memory. After receiving Zhang Ye's reply, Dr. Zhao retreated again and again, erasing his memory, which is something that no one is willing to accept. Don't blame me, I can't help it, if you don't erase your memory about me, then I will be exposed, I will be studied, and now my strength is not enough to fight against the state apparatus. As he spoke, Zhang Yi dodged, and when he came behind Dr. Zhao, he knocked him unconscious with a knife. Using the creation furnace, the person being created will fall into a deep sleep, and Zhang Yi is doing this now, just to let Dr. Zhao enter the state in advance, and at the same time, it can also prevent Dr. Zhao from not cooperating. Crossing the huge black coffin, Zhang Yi came to a well-preserved warehouse. Because of the important thing as the furnace, this warehouse is built with special materials, and even if the Qing army used artillery to attack in the battle in the dream, this warehouse is still well preserved. The warehouse looks like a hole from the outside, with no windows and no entrance door. This is a protection made by Xuanyi to prevent someone from stealing the furnace. If you want to enter the warehouse, you can only send gas to the warehouse, and then the warehouse door will open automatically. In my dream, only Xian Yi's qi can open the door of the warehouse, and now that I have cultivated the divine skill, I should be able to open it too. Zhang Yi thought about it, and began to teach that it was placed on the warehouse, and began to transport the qi in his body. Boom! As Zhang Yi transported his qi into the warehouse, a door appeared where he was pressing his hands, and Zhang Yi pushed it open and walked in with Dr. Zhao. He put Dr. Zhao into the furnace at one end of the furnace, and Zhang Yi into the furnace at the other end. The furnace needs to be controlled by one person, and the furnace holder's own qi is used to guide the qi in the other person's body to achieve the effect of healing the body or treating mental diseases. With Zhang Ye's operation, the entire furnace began to glow with a faint blue light, which was gorgeous. It is easy to erase a person's memory, but it is difficult to selectively erase the memory. Everything in the world has a cause and effect, just erasing a memory is equivalent to digging out a piece between cause and effect. If it is not handled well, the person who has been erased will recall this erased memory. The person who attacked Xian Yi when he was dying in the dream should have recovered his memory later, and then found Bo village. While Zhang Yi was using the furnace to erase Dr. Zhao's memories of himself, the exploration team had already cleaned the surface of the red earth area from the dirt. The entire red soil was densely packed with the corpses of the Qing army. It's a huge mass grave. Professor Yuan took a breath of cold air, and not only her, but everyone in the exploration team began to fidget. The thought of human bones at his feet makes it impossible for anyone to calm down. Professor Yuan, I have calculated that there are at least 100,000 corpses of Qing soldiers buried here. Cui Donghai said with a serious face, 100,000 troops is not a small number, whether it is their food and clothing, or marching and fighting, it is impossible to hide. But there is no record in the history books that this is an army of 100,000. Professor Yuan followed Cui Dongsheng's words and said. Yes, don't you think it strange? That's an army of 100,000 people. Whatever the cause of their death, they shouldn't be unknown. Also, when the 100,000 army is not moving, it may be possible to hide, but once it does, even if you want to hide it, you can't do it. After all, the 100,000 army is too conspicuous, unless you. Cui Dongsheng made a bold guess. Unless the people in power at that time don't want people to know about this army, then this army will kill everyone who sees them while marching. This. Quite possibly. But how did the 100,000 army die? Is it really that they marched to this place and then suffered an earthquake and were buried here? Several archaeology professors pondered, and suddenly a crisp voice came. Professors, I'm a doctor, and I don't know much about archaeology, but judging from these bones, these people should have been killed. At this time, Fang Yan, who was observing the corpses of the Qing army that had been cleaned up, said. Because I studied medicine, I am familiar with the bone structure of the human body. Many of these corpses are incomplete, and at first I thought they were smashed by some heavier object and they were buried in the earth, until I saw this sentence and rejected that idea. Look at this corpse, he has 2 sternums off, and then look at the section of the broken bones. As she spoke, Fang Yan generously picked up the 2 sternums dropped by the soldier and showed the broken section to everyone present. The section of this broken bone is smooth, and if it was broken by a heavy object, there would be a lot of gaps in this section, not like it is now. Such a cross-section can only be caused by the cutting of weapons such as swords, that is, the soldier of the clubhouse was killed by someone. Of course, it's not just this one corpse, I've found a lot of corpses like this one. And this corpse, the outline of his broken sternum is a circle, and then look at his armor, the iron plate on the chest of the armor also shows a sunken circle, and the mark on the iron plate is imprinted when it is smashed, which is clearly a meteor hammer. Look at that one again, the skull is red, apparently he died of a cerebral hemorrhage while he was alive, and I don't know what killed him. Fang Yan pointed to the bones one after another, which made the archaeologists next to him frown. After Fang Yan's analysis, they also gradually determined that the 100,000 army was killed. Your name is Fang Yan, right? Huh? Yes. Yes, Professor Yuan, do you have anything to say? Only then did Fang Yan realize that she seemed to have occupied a magpie's nest, and it was not for a medical worker to interject here. No, your analysis is in place and solves a big problem for us. Professor Yuan said with a smile, not angry at Fang Yan's previous interjection. Research needs to be more people like Fang Yan, everyone can only express their own opinions, so that they can make progress together. Yes. When the other professors heard Professor Yuan's words, they chimed in. They really agreed with what Professor Yuan had just said, and Fang Yan's explanation gave them another direction for their research. It's just that they won't be allowed to scurry around like headless flies anymore. One thing is very strange, if these Qing soldiers were killed by people, then why are there only the corpses of the Qing army, and there are no corpses of other strength? Could it be that the bodies of the fighters of the other side were pulled away? The forces that can defeat the 100,000 strong army, their number must be more than 100,000, and this number of casualties will not be able to be cleaned up in a while. But the corpse was taken away, and the weapons should be left, right? Why are there only weapons used by the Qing army here? Several professors from the Department of Archaeology discussed, each with a different opinion. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we should put our old ways of thinking behind, because there is a lot of weirdness here. So, we can think a little bolder in the direction. This. What Professor Yuan said, the thinker of the crowd, finally nodded in agreement. Guys, I think you've forgotten something. Sun Chang, who had been listening to the discussions of these archaeology professors, said. Have you forgotten that this thing just came out of the ground? Sun Chang pointed to the steel saber-toothed tiger standing motionless not far away. Everyone looked in the direction of Sun Chang's finger, and when they saw the monster guarded by the special squad, they suddenly realized. Yes, maybe it's not humans who are fighting the Qing army, but that monster. Cui Dongxing said excitedly, the power of the steel saber-toothed tiger is obvious to all, and the 12 special soldiers carrying rifles can't help it, which is a proper existence in ancient times with one enemy and 10,000. It's still a little impossible, although that monster is strong, but against an army of 100,000, it's still a little reluctant. Professor Yuan frowned and calculated, what kind of change is the army of 100,000, even if everyone presses on that monster, he can also suppress him. If that monster isn't one. Qing Shifei said, not far from everyone, you can come and see. He stared at the thing under the corpse. That thing emitted a metallic light, although he couldn't see the whole picture, but Qing Shifei could be sure that the thing below was the same kind as the steel saber-toothed tiger not far away. When everyone saw the corner of the monster under the corpse, they took a deep breath. Sure enough, there's more than one monster like that. Now that we have figured out who killed these 100,000 troops, the most important thing now is where these monsters came from, and whether they are thought to have been created. After figuring out why these Qing soldiers died, Professor Yuan was very excited. However, there were a few people at the scene who frowned, thinking that the cause of death of the 100,000 army was not so simple. One of them is Sun Chang. When he was close to Zhang Yi just now, he heard some information. This 100,000 army should be suitable for the 3,000 villagers of Bio village to die together. The other person who remained skeptical was Fang Yan. As I said just now, she was a doctor and was very familiar with the structure of the human body, and many of the injuries of these corpses could not be caused by that kind of monster. The other is Zhou Tian, a metaphysical master who has not spoken. The so-called metaphysical science is not the kind of charlatan who can draw talismans, set up formations, and tell fortunes, but a person who has studied the I Ching Bagua and Feng Shui of the Dragon Kingdom more thoroughly. Because Zhou Tian's research on the I Ching and Feng Shui is biased towards metaphysics, in addition to believing in science, he faintly feels that there are some unknown mysterious powers in this world. In his opinion, the fall of the 100,000 army is not only related to these steel monsters, but the village in front of him should also be inextricably linked. Of course, this is just a guess on his part, and he won't be like these experts and professors, who think of what to say and don't go to the field at all. Yes, that's right, to be honest, Zhou Tian does look down on these experts and professors. Not only is it rigid and old-fashioned, but it is unwilling to accept new things, and it also likes to blow nonsense. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been notified that the entrance to the space below is ready for people, and I believe that the support team will arrive soon. Sun Chang said to everyone. Hearing this, the exploration team was pleasantly surprised, and they were finally able to go to that mysterious village. Soon, an armed army of 300 men arrived in the red zone. The steel saber-toothed tiger puppet was accepted by the army, and the 12-member team led by Sun Qianghua was all carried away for treatment. Professor Yuan, we will protect you from the village in front of you. A burly middle-aged man came to the exploration team and said, my name is Chu Zhongtian, you can call me Zhongtian or Chu Team next. And the next actions must be under my command, no one is allowed to act without authorization, this is the document sent from above, you can take a look. As he spoke, Chu Zhongtian handed the appointment document in his hand to Professor Yuan. After getting the document, Professor Yuan read the above content as soon as possible. Team Chu, the above means that we can't study anything without your permission, even if some ancient relics appear. No, anyone who acts without authorization will be dealt with as leaking state secrets. Okay, I understand. Professor Yuan was a little unwilling. When did he have to listen to the command of others when he carried out archaeological work? Team Chu, can our live broadcast still be carried out? For the time being. Chu Zhongtian said after thinking for a moment. Although some unbelievable things have happened in this underground space, it has not yet reached the point of hiding and concealing, as long as something does not leak out. Professor Yuan, you go and inform the members of the exploration team, we will now set off for that village. As for here, someone will come and sort it out, and they will be responsible for exhuming all the corpses. Okay. Hearing that they could go to the village, everyone was very happy, and quickly put the tools in their hands into their backpacks, like Chu Zhongtian. In this way, Chu Zhongtian led the exploration team to move forward, but the difference was that the escort team of 12 people became 49 people. A few minutes later, everyone came to the entrance of the village, where there was a torii, but because of the time it had long since decayed, the handwriting on it was no longer legible. Team Chu, there is handwriting on this stone. This was, shouted a soldier in charge of scouting the surrounding situation. Randomly, Chu Zhongtian waited for the exploration team to come to the side of this stone. The stone, which was supposed to have been standing before, had now fallen and been buried in the ground, with only a tiny part of it leaking, and some handwriting could be seen on it. Professor Yuan, please clean up this stone, my people are all big and coarse, it won't be good if it is damaged. Now, shouldn't the Chu team go to the village to arrest that kidnapper now? Professor Yuan was a little reluctant, not because she was unwilling to dig up the stone, but because she was afraid that some of the information in the village would be destroyed by Zhang Yi. Have you forgotten what I just said? Everything must be under my command, do you want to get out of here? This. All right. As for the excavation of this stone, Professor Yuan is happy to dig it herself, and if it is really handed over to these soldiers, she will be unhappy. Several archaeologists took out their tools and began to carefully remove the stones. The stone is very large, it has been broken into many pieces, and the broken pieces are quite large, and it is easy to put together a whole. Between the stones are written with 7 characters in Cinnabar. Crossing the crowd to generate positive results. Ladies and gentlemen, do you have any thoughts on these 7 words? Chu Zhongtian asked. The reason why he didn't want to go to the village to find Zhang Yi immediately was to find some useful information through this village, so as to facilitate his communication with Zhang Yi. Crossing the crowd to produce positive results, this village is quite big. Cui Dongxing laughed twice. In ancient times, a memorial arch would be placed at the entrance of the village to mark the name of the village, but what is said here to cross all living beings, isn't this nonsense? Could it be that all the people in this village believe in Buddhism? Isn't the teaching of Buddhism universal to all sentient beings? It is very likely, and of course it cannot be ruled out that there is a cult organization in this village. Many archaeologists talked about it, but Zhou Tian, who was on the periphery of the crowd, touched his chin and looked pensive. Captain Chu, I suspect there's still a stone here. Just as everyone was studying the cleared stones, Zhou Tian's voice sounded on the right side. Chu Zhongtian looked up, and finally said to Professor Yuan, Professor Yuan is in trouble with you. Chu Zhongtian's meaning is obvious, and then go and clean up the place that Zhou Tian pointed to. Good. Professor Yuan glanced at Zhou Tian and did not refuse. Just when the professors of the Department of Archaeology were digging, Chu Zhongtian came to Zhou Tian's side. I've read the information of everyone in the exploration team, you are Professor Zhou Tian, and your main research is the metaphysics of the Dragon Kingdom. Yes. How can you be sure that there will be a stone with words here? Because the sentence on that stone is only the first half of a poem. If I'm not wrong, there should be a stone here that says, cultivating the right path is silent. Professor Zhou, why haven't I heard this poem you said? Chu Zhongtian thought for a long time. Although he was a soldier, he also belonged to the upper middle class in literature, but even so, he had never heard such a poem. It's normal that you haven't heard of it, Captain Chu, because the poem I said has not been included in the teaching materials, nor has it been circulated among the public. Ah, there is no circulation in the public, Professor Zhou, how do you know? You have also checked my information and know that I am studying metaphysics, and the 2 sentences I said just now are from metaphysics. From metaphysics? Yes, you've all seen the Romance of the Gods, right? No, could it be that this poem is from the Romance of the Gods? Chu Zhongtian frowned slightly. It was originally just a case that seemed to be related to black technology, but how could he get here again? Yes, not only has this sentence been recorded in Fengshen acting skills, but this poem has also been circulated in Taoism. Professor Zhou, tell me more about it. Well, what I just said is just one of the lines of a poem, and the whole text is like this. Open the earth and open the heavens, and talk about the scriptures and the law. The 5 Qi dynasties pass on the tricks, and the 3 flowers gather to perform without life. The sky is infinitely wonderful, and the ground embraces the golden lotus Changruism. It is silent to do the best to generate positive results and cultivate the right path. Hongjun Biochemistry saw the opening of the sky, and the ugly people on the earth went to the platform. Refining the golden body is immeasurable, and Bio is multi-talented in the palace. Zhou Tian recited the whole poem in one breath, and Chu Zhongtian was puzzled by the second monk when he heard it. Seeing this, Zhou Tian no longer played dumb riddles. This poem is about the sect leader of the sect who intercepts the heavens. Tongtian Sect Master. Chu Zhongtian is no stranger to the Tongtian Sect Master, and it can be said that most of the people in the Dragon Kingdom have heard of this name. Captain Chu, this stone has been cleared out. There are really words on it. Someone exclaimed, instantly pulling Chu Zhongtian's thoughts back to the present world. Professor Yuan, take a look at what is written on this stone. The characters on the stone are the ancient characters of the Dragon Kingdom, and this font is not recognizable to people who have studied history at all. Professor Yuan squatted on the edge of the stone and looked at it carefully, interpreting the words intermittently. Raise. Yes. Correct. Road. Genus. Not, sound. As soon as these words came out, the audience was silent, and they looked at Zhou Tian with incredible eyes. They all heard what Zhou Tian said just now, and the words on this stone are exactly the same as what Zhou Tian said. Professor Zhou, what do you think? Chu Zhongtian turned his gaze to Zhou Tian, wanting to hear his opinion. This. Zhou Tian pondered for a moment, and then said, being able to use this poem shows that the people in this village should believe in the interception sect, or they should agree with the concept of interception religion and teaching. Well, by the way, what is the Bio Palace in the poem you said, Professor Zhou, just now? Bio Palace is the place where the sect was established. Well, I got it. Chu Zhongtian's surface has not changed, and his heart has already been turbulent. Bio Palace, Bio Village, the place where the sect was founded. In fact, when Chu Zhongtian first came down, he was 90% sure that this ancient village was called Bio Village. The feeling of this village is to regard itself as a trump of the religion. Does it mean that the head of this village is the leader of the sect? And the kidnapper who claimed to be or more than 400 years ago, Chu Zhongtian felt that his head was a little confused. Let's go to the center of the village. If you can't figure it out, don't think about it. Anyway, when you find the kidnapper in the center of the village, everything will be clear. After taking a picture of the 2 stones, Professor Yuan followed the large group and began to walk towards the center of the village. It's a pity, I don't know the name of this village, otherwise I can try to check the history books and try to find a record of this village. Cui Dongxing said with emotion. Professor Cui, don't talk about what you have and don't have. I believe that by entering the center of the village, we can find out the secrets here. The group gradually drifted away, but the live broadcast room exploded. I originally thought it was an archaeological live broadcast, but now it seems to be theological propaganda. Yes, the Connecting Heaven sect masters have all come out. Now I confess, I am the leader of the interception sect Tongtian Dao, but my cultivation is sealed, and now it only takes 888 to unseal, which kind person donated 888 yuan to me, and I will be the chief disciple of the interception sect when I cultivate to restore the seal. It's getting more and more interesting, and sure enough, as I said before, that underground space is a blessed cave. Science is dead, theology should stand. This account has been banned for suspected illegal propaganda. I'll just say, the steel monsters before weren't made by the ancients at all. Yes, let alone the ancients, even the current technology may not be able to create such a powerful, uncontrolled steel monster. Shall I go to apprenticeship first? In this way, the exploration team passed through the dilapidated houses, and they were about to enter these houses to find some information, when the center of Bio Village suddenly emitted a blue light that soared into the sky. That's? Chu Zhongtian looked at the faint blue light rising into the sky, and for some reason, an urge to take it for himself suddenly welled up in his heart. Not only him, but more than 100 people in the same company were seriously reflected in the faint blue light, and their steps unconsciously moved in the direction of the beam. In the end, it was Chu Zhongtian, who was a soldier, who was mentally identified, and was the first to wake up under the temptation of the dark blue beam. What's wrong with me? Chu Zhongtian looked at his hands and feet in confusion. He only felt that he couldn't control himself when he saw that ray of light, and kept repeating the words, "Get it," in his mind. There's something wrong with that light. Chu Zhongtian raised his head and was shocked to find that the people on the left and right had fallen into the state he had just had. "Wake up, everyone, wake up!" Chu Zhongtian shouted loudly, but no one could hear his words, and he still moved his steps. Bang bang bang. In the end, Chu Zhongtian really had no choice, so he had to take out his pistol and shoot 3 times into the sky, hoping that the gunfire would wake up these people. Fortunately, these 3 gunshots woke everyone up, and they looked at themselves one by one at a loss, not understanding what had just happened. What happened to us just now? The people in the exploration team were very confused. They only remembered seeing a faint blue light, and then they were confused and didn't know anything. We must have been seduced by that blue light. Chu Zhongtian said with palpitations, if it weren't for his willpower being quite firm, who knows what would have happened to their group of people. Could this be the kidnappers doing? He knows that he is not our opponent, so he is engaged in these crooked things. Quite possibly. Anyway, let's speed up, stop searching these houses, and go straight to the place where the light is on. Chu Zhongtian said that he had a hunch that the kidnapper was most likely in the place where the beam was lit. In fact, just as Chu Zhongtian thought, the place where the faint blue beam lit up was the location of the warehouse. This beam of light was created by Zhang Yi, but the real purpose was not to deal with Chu Zhongtian and them, but the vision when someone used the creation furnace to awaken and become an alien. This person is naturally Dr. Zhao. This dark blue beam of light contains the aura of heaven and earth, which is the reward given by heaven and earth when the person who has been transformed by the creation furnace awakens. The reason why the exploration team was seduced by this beam was because the creatures had a desire for aura from the depths of their souls, and naturally walked uncontrollably towards the place where the beam was lit. Of course, the dark blue beam also has a role, that is, the creatures that can resist his temptation have a 90% chance of using the creation furnace to awaken successfully. I kidnapped you here, delayed you for a day, and now I also help you awaken to become an alien, so that you can live a long life, so that I don't owe you anything. Lifting Dr. Zhao out of the furnace, Dr. Zhao was already in a coma. Zhang Yi put his hand on Dr. Zhao's wrist and began to probe what kind of ability Dr. Zhao had awakened when he fell to the ground. He used his own qi to begin to channel the qi produced by Dr. Zhao's awakening, and suddenly a surge of vitality rushed to his face. Is the ability to awaken a healing power? The same ability as the moon born in a dream. Take another look at the village names of Bio Village, and then leave Bio Village. Zhang Yi muttered, and then took Dr. Zhao to the huge coffin. As he walked out of the warehouse, the door to the warehouse began to fade away. When Zhang Yi walked to the huge coffin, he found that Chu Zhongtian and his party had also come here. Many of them were studying around this huge black coffin, and a few people were sitting around Xian Yi, who was sitting on the ground, and they didn't know what they were doing. I saw Professor Yuan put on rubber gloves and tapped Xian Yi's face with a finger, and then he said in surprise, this person's body has not become stiff. It is the first time that Professor Yuan has seen a corpse like Xian Yi, who has been engaged in the archaeological industry for more than 40 years. The face is ruddy, the body is soft, and the skin can be broken by blowing, which she will believe if someone tells Professor Yuan that this person is still alive. Ladies and gentlemen, my men did not find the kidnapper here, but they found someone around this huge coffin who had just sprinkled liquor, and I think it was the kidnapper who did it. Chu Zhongtian said to Professor Yuan and the others, still holding a parchment scroll in his hand. Also, my people found this thing on this huge coffin, and we can't read the ancient characters on it, so I asked a few professors to translate it for us. As he spoke, Chu Zhongtian handed the parchment scroll in his hand to Professor Yuan. Professor Yuan did not hesitate to turn on the parchment scroll, and directly began to block it according to the words on it. I was born for heaven and earth, I was born to attain the Tao, I was raised by the 10 idiot Tao, I took the name Xuani, and I wandered away from all directions. Professor Yuan looked up and savored the meaning of this sentence. Chu Zhongtian was also confused when he heard this, so he asked what this sentence meant. This should be a person's experience, where did you find it, Captain Chu? Well, on this huge coffin, didn't I just say that? I know, exactly where is this coffin? Right above this man's head. Chu Zhongtian pointed at Xian Yi, the side of the huge coffin was oblique, and the top of Xian Yi's head was really the place where the lid of the huge coffin protruded. Oh, I guess this is the life of this man. The meaning of this sentence I read just now is that I have no parents, I am a creature born between heaven and earth, born to understand the truth of time, and then adopted by a Taoist priest named Foolish Taoist, who gave him a Taoist name called Xuani, and then wandered away with Foolish Taoist. After Professor Yuan finished speaking, he looked at the parchment scroll and read, I have learned miraculous skills, practicing qi in the body, practicing things outside, and when I tie my hair, I will be transcendent and enter the holy. Professor Yuan read the contents of the parchment scroll while translating it for Chu Zhongtian and them. Soon I read the content of Xuani's creation of Bio Village, and when I read this, Professor Yuan stood in place stupidly like 5 thunderbolts, not even noticing that the parchment scroll in his hand had fallen. Professor Yuan, what's wrong with you? Seeing Professor Yuan standing dementedly, everyone was shocked, thinking that there was something wrong with this parchment scroll, and this love made Professor Yuan look like this. It took a long time for Professor Yuan to wake up from the shock brought to him by the 3 words of Bio Village. Xiao Song, do you remember the question I asked Zhang Yi in class? Without resuming the greetings of the other people around him, Professor Yuan directly found Song. Ji Peng. Remember, when I first came to the underground space, I also told the netizens in the live broadcast room about this thing, did you say to the friends in the live broadcast room? Speaking of Zhang Yi, Song Jipeng instantly came to his senses, he had some small friction with Zhang Yi before, and now he can step on him again, can he not be happy? Do you remember what questions I asked him, and how did he answer? Although Professor Yuan had the answer in her heart, she didn't know why, she always wanted to find Song Jipeng again to confirm, so that she seemed to be at ease. Of course I remember. Professor, you are asking what was the name of the biggest force in the late Ming and early Qing dynasties except for the Qing government? And Zhang Yi replied that Bio Village, and he died with the 100,000 army sent by Huang Taiji. Alas, don't think about it, Professor, it's not that you teach badly, it's just that Zhang Yi is too angry. Song Jipeng said with a sad expression. And the live broadcast room also began to swipe the screen. I'll go, why is Professor Yuan asking this question at this time? Every time I hear this story, I feel very comfortable, it turns out that there are scumbags like me in Shangjing University. This army of 100,000 encircles and suppresses a village, and it can be wiped out, it's just outrageous, it's outrageous. Zhang Yi, that scumbag, really doesn't deserve to be at Shanghai Beijing University. That's it, it's an insult to Siokyo University. When Miss Su Yao said that the biggest force was Hongmen, I also went to check it out, and the information was indeed Hongmen. What Bio Village was, I couldn't find it at all in the information. By the way, don't you feel weird? Why did Professor Yuan suddenly ask this question? The barrage in the live broadcast room was full of barrages. Most of them were spraying Zhang Yi for not learning and not knowing, wasting resources in Beijing University, etc., and there were also praising Song Jipeng and Su Yao. At this moment, Professor Yuan's voice came slowly. Xiao Song, we were wrong, everyone was wrong. Zhang Ye's answer is right. After speaking, Professor Yuan sat down on the ground as if the sentence just now had exerted all her strength. It's normal for a person to make mistakes, but it takes a lot of courage to admit your mistakes, especially in what you're good at. Although Professor Yuan didn't want to admit that Zhang Ye's answer was correct before, the facts were in front of her, and she couldn't change it if she didn't want to admit it. After hearing Professor Yuan's words, everyone's minds were suddenly full of question marks. Hongmen was the largest force in the late Ming and early Qing dynasties, except for the Qing government. Isn't it recorded like this in history? Now how did it turn out that they were wrong? Similarly, netizens in the live broadcast room were also full of question marks, not knowing what Professor Yuan meant. We were wrong. We were wrong. We were wrong. Professor Yuan didn't give an explanation, but just said that he was wrong, and this situation made the people around him so anxious that they scratched their ears and cheeks, but there was nothing they could do. Of course, there were also two people at the scene who were calm and composed, namely Chu Zhongtian and Zhou Tian. Before coming down, Chu Zhongtian knew about this matter, so he naturally wouldn't be too surprised. And Zhou Tian, after seeing the poem outside Bio Village, had already guessed some, and he would not be surprised when the results came out now. If my guess is correct, the name of this village should be Bio Village. Zhou Tian sighed and said leisurely. What, Bio Village? Yes, haven't you reacted yet? The corpses of the 100,000 army outside the village, the poem at the gate of the village, and the place where the sect is located is Bio Palace. Zhou Tian explained that he almost told them the answer directly. The people present were not stupid, and they naturally heard the answer from Zhou Tian's words. Are you saying that the student named Zhang Yi said it was true? It should be. Zhou Tian closed his eyes, but his heart was very excited. What he studied was the metaphysics of the Dragon Kingdom, although it is now a scientific society, but with his research, he has always believed that there is metaphysics in the Dragon Kingdom, and even theology may have existed in the past. Now that Bio Village is alive, he can finally confirm his thoughts. Professor Zhou is right, this may really be Bio Village, and what the classmate named Zhang Yi said may be the real history. Chu Zhongtian also stood up and proved that what Zhou Tian said was right. Before coming down again, we first learned about Bio Village from the kidnapper, and then found out that a student named Zhang Yi had said something similar, so we sent someone to ask Zhang Yi, and Zhang Yi knew about this thing that the kidnapped Dr. Zhao told him. This village is Bio Village, and the founder is the man in front of him. Finally, Professor Yuan came to his senses, looked at Xian Yi who was sitting on the ground with complicated eyes and said. Professor Yuan, what else does this parchment scroll say? Seeing that Professor Yuan came back to his senses, Chu Zhongtian asked eagerly. It is said that this person named Xuanyi was born with a technique called Divine Machine 100 Refinement, and after practicing this exercise, he is no longer an ordinary person, he can refine all kinds of magic weapons, and he is invulnerable, with infinite strength, and can do things that ordinary people can't do. Later, because of his own strength, some people worshipped him as a god, and some people coveted his power. Anyway, the people around him had plans against him. He was tired of the kind of world where only he was special, so he created Bio Village, and spent a few years creating a magic weapon called the Creation Furnace, which can treat all kinds of diseases and pains, and can also awaken ordinary people to become aliens with various magical powers. Professor Yuan didn't continue to talk about this, but asked everyone. What do you think of what is written on this? If you want me to say, This is a complete row of nonsense. It should be that he came down to deceive the world. What is the practice of Qigong in this world, and what is the magic weapon of refining? Hu Can was the first to say that he was 58 years old, and he had believed in science for most of his life, and in the end someone told him that there was Qi cultivation and immortal cultivation in this world, which made special. How could he accept it? Everyone knows that people in ancient times were ignorant, and when they encountered some strange things, they all pulled on the gods and ghosts, so we cannot believe what magic tricks and magic weapons are recorded on it, but this village is called Bio Village, which can be believed. Cui Dongxing expressed his opinion, maintaining a half-believing attitude towards the contents of the parchment. I feel like it's true. Zhou Tian lifted the glasses on the bridge of his nose. Just like the steel monster outside the village, why can it act flexibly? Why is its combat effectiveness so strong? Isn't this the magic weapon mentioned on the parchment scroll? Also, can a normal person be immortal for 400 years underground? Zhou Tian looked at Xian Yi sitting on the ground in fascination, and a trace of morbid possessiveness flashed in his eyes. His physical immortality may be because of this space. As for the steel monster outside, it is also possible to die ancient tricks, or alien technology. Anyway, these are more reliable than any Qi training techniques. Hu Can retorted excitedly. He has been studying biology for nearly 30 years, and there is no creature in the world that relies on Qi training to master special powers. So you'd rather believe in the imaginary things of aliens, rather than believe in the legends of the Dragon Kingdom since ancient times, and don't believe in the content recorded on it in black and white? Zhou Tian glanced at Hu Can and said disdainfully, it's really pitiful, forever limited to what I have learned. You. Hu Can wanted to refute, but was stopped by Chu Zhongtian. I invited you to come here to explore the secrets of this underground space, not to let you quarrel, and say that if you want to quarrel, then go out. Chu Zhongtian said angrily, and as he spoke, everyone was instantly quiet. Professor Yuan, please continue to translate. Good. It is said that after Xian Yi made the creation furnace, because he could treat all kinds of diseases and pains, many people would come to see a doctor every day. He left some people, and also drove away some people with improper minds, and finally the villagers in the village reached 3,000 people, and among these 3,000 people, there are also some aliens with awakening ability. These inhumans have different abilities, some can control goods, some are powerful, some can heal wounds, some can fly, and so on. During this period, Huang Taiji stabilized the magic of Bio Village, so he sent someone to invite Xian Yi to serve him, but he was rejected by Xian Yi on the grounds that he was meddling in worldly affairs. Until one day, 100,000 soldiers will come to the outside of the village. The names of the 3,000 villages in Bio Village, regardless of men, women, and children, will flee to the end, and they will fight to the death with the 100,000 army, and finally they will all die. 666. I originally thought it was a scumbag, but I didn't expect it to be a god. It's because we misunderstood Zhang Yi. We owe Zhang Yi a word of apology. My scalp is numb. It turns out that there are really cultivation exercises in this world. Do you think Xian Yi will leave that magic skill in Bio Village? It's very likely. After all, the big guy in the novel will leave his own cultivation exercises when he is dying, so that he will have a successor. No, I'm going to Bio Village. I'm looking for a practice method. What? You're still in the live broadcast room. I'm on the plane. Wake up, there are military guards outside Bio Village. Are you entering Bio Village? I can't care so much. Let's fight a bicycle and become a motorcycle. Did you organize a group to go to Bio Village? After all, the law does not blame the public. I'm the only one who noticed that Xuani's little brother is so handsome. Upstairs must be a girl, in fact, I don't look bad, consider me. Since Professor Yuan began to interpret the content of the parchment scroll, a large number of viewers began to pour into the live broadcast room. After all, in this real society, what is more attractive than the appearance of supernatural powers? All of a sudden, the entire internet was full of news about Bo Village. What science is dead, theology should stand. What sectarianism really exists, let's uncover this little-known history. What practice Qigong method is in the world, cultivation can be immortal. In short, all kinds of news began to flood various websites, so that people who did not pay attention to Bo Village gradually became interested and began to actively search for information about Bo Village. This is also the reason why there was a sudden influx of many people in the live broadcast room. In Bo Village, because of Chu Zhongtian's shock, Hu Kankan did not quarrel with Zhou Tian. Professor Yuan continued to interpret the contents of the parchment scroll. Well, after defeating the Qin government's 100,000 army, the 3,000 villagers of Bo Village were killed and wounded, leaving only Xian Yi alone, but he was also seriously injured at that time, and when he was sorting out the corpses of the 3,000 villagers of Bo Village, he was attacked by a person. This person once came to Bo Village to ask Xian Yi to help him treat his injuries, and after Xian Yi agreed, he used the creation furnace to heal him, and in the process of treatment, he awakened his ability and became an alien. Later, Xian Yi found out that this person's heart was not right, and he was bent on using the power of Bo Village to oppose the Qin dynasty and restore his sight, which violated Xuanyi's purpose of establishing Bo Village, and randomly used the creation furnace to erase his amnesics, abolish his abilities, and drive him out of Bo Village. But I don't know what's going on, this person's ability hasn't been erased, and all the memories are there, and they attacked Xian Yi when he was seriously injured. In the end, although Xian Yi killed him, his life also came to an end, and he used his last strength to sink Bo Village into the ground. And then that? Chu Zhongtian saw Professor Yuan stop and asked. That's all there is to the parchment. Isn't there a record of the divine skill 100 refining technique? No, because Xian Yi thought that the death of the 3,000 villagers of Bo Village was his fault and was also caused by the divine skill 100 refinement, so he did not record the divine skill 100 refining exercises, but disappeared into this world with himself. Is that so? Professor Yuan will give me this parchment roll. Chu Zhongtian wanted to return the parchment scroll in Professor Yuan's hand, and he wanted to take it back and find an expert professor to determine the content of the parchment scroll. The exercises of the magic machine are very important, and there can be no sloppiness. It's a pity, if the magic is recorded, we can prove the authenticity of the contents of the parchment scroll. It's a pity. I can only blame this Xian Yi for being too pedantic, and he actually let the magic machine disappear from the world from now on. Hee, what kind of magic tricks, I think it's fake, so I don't dare to pass it on. Hu Kankan seemed to have found an opportunity to attack Xuanyi, and said with a smug face. Do you say yes? Don't we have one thing to say when we study the old, and if it is not handed down, it means that there is nothing. If there is no magic trick, that is, everything said on this parchment scroll is fake. I'm going to prove to you today that there is no such thing as a cultivation method in this world. The more Hu Kankan spoke, the more excited he became, and finally took out the tool directly to cut off a piece of flesh and blood from Xian Yi's body to study. Stop! Chu Zhongtian shouted when he saw this, and the two warriors around him hurriedly held Hu Kankan down. Did I say that you are not allowed to act without permission? What are you doing now? What are you doing? I'm researching, didn't you invite me here just to study? Let go of me. I'll prove to you that this Xuanyi is just an ordinary person. Hu Kankan struggled, and kept saying in the air, there is no creature in this world that can cultivate, it doesn't exist at all. I have to say that although Hu Kankan is a scholar, his physical fitness is still quite good, and he can slowly move forward when he is pressed by two soldiers. He grabbed his hands forward, trying to grab Xian Yi's clothes. Just when Hu Kankan was about to meet Xian Yi, Chu Zhongtian shouted, hold him down for me. Chu Zhongtian saw that the two soldiers were not using all their strength, and he could also understand that these were two soldiers who were afraid of hurting Hu Kankan. After hearing Chu Zhongtian's words, the two soldiers exerted their strength again. Hearing only a click, Professor Hu Kankan's head was pressed to the ground by the soldiers, making a collision sound. Crazy, crazy. Chu Zhongtian said angrily, take him out of the underground space, lock him in the confinement room first, and let him leave after he recovers consciousness. After speaking, the two soldiers walked towards the entrance of Hu Kankan's underground space. Hu Kankan, who was hanging in mid-air, was still crying and howling. Let go of me, I want to study, I want to prove it to you. I'm a professor, you don't dare to do this to me. I'm going to sue you for illegally detaining me. Hu Kankan's voice faded away until it disappeared. No one saw that after leaving the huge coffin, the corners of Hu Kankan's mouth rose, leaking a smile that had succeeded in his plan, and he was clutching a strand of hair in his hand. This is the one that was ripped off Xian Yi when he approached him just now. Send this route to the ugly country, and my green card will be settled. Hu Kankan thought in his heart that he had always wanted to get a green card from the ugly country, so he secretly sent a lot of research materials about the dragon country to the ugly country. But the information he can get is some irrelevant content, and he can't get a green card from an ugly country for a long time. When he met Xian Yi today, he knew that it would not be his turn to study Xian Yi, so he simply brought out some Xian Yi's body tissues in exchange for a green card from the ugly country. Chu Zhongtian didn't see Hu Kankan's small movements, and neither did the people in the exploration team, but Zhang Yi, who was hiding on the side, could see it clearly. Although I don't know why Hu Kankan didn't hesitate to pretend to be crazy and stupid to offend Chu Zhongtian and take away one of Xian Yi's hair, Zhang Yi was not ready to let him go. The steel saber-toothed tiger puppet in the red zone of mental communication, which had been standing in place, instantly began to move. This made the soldiers guarding the steel saber-toothed tiger puppet feel like they were facing a great enemy, and they raised their guns one by one, and even a few bazookas were aimed at the steel saber-toothed tiger puppet. Once the monster in front of them attacks them, they will also cover them with artillery fire without mercy. In the next second, the steel saber-toothed tiger puppet moved, but instead of attacking them, it rushed towards Hu Kankan in a circle. Seeing that the monster did not attack, but ran towards the depths of the village, the soldiers hurriedly contacted Chu Zhongtian to tell them that the steel saber-toothed tiger puppet had rushed towards their location. After Chu Zhongtian got the news, he gathered his soldiers and quickly formed a defensive circle. Hee, you don't have to be nervous, as long as you don't attack me, Xiao Bai won't attack you. At this moment, Chu Zhongtian remembered Zhang Ye's voice behind them. Startled, they quickly turned back, becoming even more nervous when they saw that it was the previous kidnapper. They remembered the scene where Zhang Yi summoned the steel saber-toothed tiger puppet before. What are you going to do? Why is that monster doing something new? It was Chu Zhongtian who calmed down first, and he asked Zhang Yi. Do you mean Xiao Bai, is he going to catch someone, or is he going to catch it for you? What do you mean, help me arrest someone? Yes, it's the professor who was taken away by your soldier just now. What are you doing with him? Hee, you'll know when Xiao Bai brings him over. In addition, a friendly reminder, you contact those two soldiers as soon as possible not to attack Xiao Bai, otherwise I may ensure the safety of your two subordinates. Zhang Yi once again regained his smiling countenance, but his smile was extremely dangerous in the eyes of the exploration team. After Chu Zhongtian heard Zhang Ye's words, his face changed suddenly, and he hurriedly picked up the walkie-talkie in his hand and began to contact the two soldiers. I don't know your name yet. After contacting the two soldiers, Chu Zhongtian said to Zhang Yi again. A name is just a code name, you can call me whatever you want. This. Mr. Kidnapper, can you tell me why you're here? Huh. I don't know why. Zhang Yi felt particularly harsh when he heard the 5 words Mr. Kidnapper. In the past, the villagers here always kept shouting in their ears about the bishop, so you can call me the master. Zhang Yi did not answer Chu Zhongtian's question, but instead gave himself a nickname. As everyone knows, his words made everyone present begin to think of Pianpio. Leader? What is the leader of the religion? It can't be the sect leader, right? In an instant, this question filled everyone's minds. In the end, Chu Zhongtian asked. Are you saying that people here used to call you sect master? No, it's calling him the master. Zhang Yi pointed at Xian Yi and said. Huh? This time, Chu Zhongtian was even more confused. Didn't you say that these people were chattering in your ear all day long and shouting the sect master? You. What is the relationship with him? Chu Zhongtian asked again. This time Zhang Yi was silent for a long time, although he had said before that he and Xian Yi were just friends, but he couldn't even agree with this statement. Me and him. Sort of a friend. Zhang Yi paused, which made Chu Zhongtian, who was carefully observing Zhang Yi, frown slightly. This sect leader must have something else to do with Xian Yi. Chu Zhongtian had such a thought in his heart, but he didn't continue to ask. He was afraid of angering Zhang Yi, and once again treated them like Sun Chang. You've asked me 2 questions, and now I have something to tell you. Without waiting for Chu Zhongtian to speak, Zhang Yi continued, you can take anything in this underground space, but you can't move Xian Yi's body in this huge coffin. Zhang Ye's voice was very strong, and he didn't allow Chu Zhongtian to refuse at all. He alone can't take away the 3,000 villagers of Bio village. Zhang Yi can leave, but these villagers are afraid that they will be pulled out to study, which is not the result Zhang Yi wants. So he thought of a way, that is, to make a deal with Chu Zhongtian in front of him. Why, can you tell me why? Some people who have been dead for more than 400 years, don't disturb their peace anymore. Zhang Ye's voice was very cold, so cold that Chu Zhongtian felt that as long as he said no, he would be immediately attacked devastatingly. I need to apply to my superiors for this, Mr. Sect Master, please wait for me for a few minutes. Seeing Zhang Yi nodding, Chu Zhongtian walked to a corner where no one was and began to contact Shen Guoyang, the director of the National Security Bureau. Director Shen, you should have heard what the sect leader said just now, how can I reply to him? There was no sound on the other end of the phone, obviously thinking about how to reply to Zhang Yi. Agree to his request, but we also have to make one condition. What conditions? Let him cooperate with us and return to the National Security Bureau to investigate. This. Hearing this request, Chu Zhongtian's first reaction was that Zhang Yi would never agree. I know the chances of him agreeing to this offer are low, but always try, and if he doesn't agree to it, you can switch to something else, like asking him a few questions. In this way, we will keep talking to each other, and you can repeat my words to that sect leader. Well, okay. After speaking, Chu Zhongtian strode back. Mr. Master, we can agree to your request, but correspondingly, you must also agree to my request. Say, what do you ask? Our condition is that you personally go with us to the National Security Bureau and accept our investigation. Impossible. Zhang Yi didn't even want to refuse directly, and followed Chu Zhongtian back to China to settle down to receive the investigation. Isn't this a sheep in the mouth of a tiger? So what is the point of him coming to Bio village to erase Dr. Zhao's memories of himself? Why don't you think about it again, Master? Chu Zhongtian asked tentatively. Don't think about it. So let's change the conditions. Yes. Our condition is that you promise me 3 things, Sect Master. Tell me what is going on. Zhang Yi is not stupid. If he agrees first, maybe Chu Zhongtian will let him do something. Chu Zhongtian was about to answer Zhang Yi, but he saw that the cameraman kept pointing the camera at himself and Zhang Yi, so he tried a look at his subordinates and asked them to pull the photographer away. Some of the things he wants to discuss with Zhang Yi next are not something that can be broadcast. We haven't thought about this yet, but we'll tell you when we do. Hehe, do I have a request for your real abilities? Zhang Yi said with a smile instead of anger, I don't want this matter to be disturbed, but it doesn't mean that I have to discuss with you, it's a big deal that I'll kill all of you now, as for these bones, I can take as many as I can. Anyway, I won't suffer. As he spoke, Zhang Yi gradually exuded a murderous aura, and everyone present only felt that a gust of wind was blowing, and the temperature of the entire underground space had dropped a lot. This. Don't be angry, Mr. Master, or you can answer me a few questions. Seeing that Zhang Yi was showing signs of anger, Chu Zhongtian hurriedly lowered his requirements. As Zhang Yi said just now, they are trading with Zhang Yi, but at the same time, they do not occupy the top. After all, they still know very little about Bio Village, and they need Zhang Yi to solve their doubts, and it is absolutely impossible to fight with Zhang Yi. Say it. After hearing Chu Zhongtian's words, Zhang Ye's expression softened a little. First, who is your true identity, Mr. Sect Master? Soon, Chu Zhongtian said it again according to the voice coming out of the Bluetooth headset. No comment. Zhang Yi replied very simply. I want to know who I really are, what do you think? Well, if that's the case, Mr. Master, I think it's hard for us to come to a consensus. Chu Zhongtian said with great embarrassment. Then don't cooperate. Zhang Yi is not the master of the negotiation, and Zhang Yi is very clear about what the most important thing in the negotiation. As long as he keeps showing this lukewarm, hard-to-do attitude, it will definitely be his victory in the end. Since you don't want to reveal your identity, Mr. Sect Master, and we don't force it, can you tell us the purpose of your visit to the village? The purpose is him. Zhang Yi casually threw Dr. Zhao at Chu Zhongtian's feet. Seeing this, Chu Zhongtian hurriedly asked people to help Dr. Zhao up, and a military doctor from the company began to check Dr. Zhao's physical condition. Rest assured, Dr. Zhao can't help but have no injuries on his body, and he is even stronger than any of you. What do you mean, Mr. Master? I used the furnace on him, and now he's an inhuman. Zhang Yi looked at Chu Zhongtian with interest. Now that Dr. Zhao had become a stranger, he really wanted to see the country's attitude towards Dr. Zhao. Inhuman. Chu Zhongtian's face changed suddenly, after the content of the parchment scroll that Professor Yuan interpreted just now, he knew what it meant to be a stranger. Mr. Master, what you said is true. It's true. After listening to Zhang Ye's words, Chu Zhongtian hurriedly called a few soldiers and asked them to protect this Dr. Zhao. Mr. Master, the next question is where is the furnace and how can it be used? The creation furnace is in the warehouse 300 meters behind me, and how to use it, it needs an artist who can skillfully use his abilities to open it. Chu Zhongtian was very satisfied with Zhang Ye's answer, and now it seemed that Dr. Zhao, who had just awakened to become an alien, had another reason to need protection. Mr. Sect Master, why are you so familiar with Bio Village and what happened more than 400 years ago? I also participated in the construction of Bio Village, what do you say I asked about these familiar? In other words, Mr. Sect Master, you have lived for more than 400 years. No, I just woke up. Zhang Yi thought in his heart that he had been dreaming since more than a month ago, and even if he had just woken up. Are you done? Don't forget what you promised me. Zhang Yi frowned and said, Xiang Chu Zhongtian asked like this, the ghost knows when it will be ahead. Well, there is one last question, Mr. Sect Master, is the little whistle you used before using the magic weapon refined by the divine machine? That little whistle is a magic weapon, I have indeed cultivated 100 magic skills. Although he had already guessed Zhang Ye's answer, after this sentence really came out of his mouth, Chu Zhongtian still couldn't help but get excited. The divine skill 100 refinements have not been lost, which means that the Dragon Kingdom still has a chance to obtain this exercise. Okay, Mr. Master, I'm done with my questions. Well, remember what you promised me. Don't worry, Mr. Sect Master, the gentleman will not be able to chase after him. But no, the country wants to talk about another cooperation with Mr. Sect Master. What do you mean? Zhang Yi, who was originally about to leave, instantly became a little interested after hearing Chu Zhongtian's words. The nation wants to work with Sir to help some of our nation's soldiers awaken to become inhumans and until they become proficient in using their abilities. You think too much. Not everyone can use the creation furnace to awaken successfully, and the world can't accommodate too many inhumans right now. Why is that? Chu Zhongtian frowned slightly. In fact, the country has always maintained a half-believing attitude towards the matter of using the creation furnace to awaken and become an alien, but this disease affects Zhang Yeden to cooperate. Even if it is later confirmed to be fake, the country will not have any loss. The aura in this world has become extremely scarce, and the roots are not enough to supply too many inhuman cultivators. The appearance of too many inhumans will only accelerate the depletion of the aura, and when the time comes, in order to balance, heaven and earth will only forcibly extract the aura from the inhuman's body, and then it will be the end of the inhuman. Zhang Yi did not deceive Chu Zhongtian. What he said was the truth. This is the sadness of the end of the law era. Well, if Mr. Sect Master is only a very small number of people who have awakened? Yes, but not more than 3 digits. Okay, then we would like to ask Mr. Master to help us awaken the inhuman. As for whatever conditions you want, you can mention them. As long as they do not violate morality, the country will try their best to satisfy you. I refuse. Zhang Yi didn't think about it, but still rejected Chu Zhongtian. Wouldn't it take a lot of time to help you awaken the inhumans? And help you train? Looking at Chu Zhongtian's puzzled eyes, Zhang Yi explained, I also said just now that the aura is scarce, one more person is equivalent to one more unit to absorb the aura, which means that the aura I can absorb will be reduced. Do you think I will harm my own interests to help you? Is that so? Chu Zhongtian muttered. Zhang Yi said that he understood that this was like a pigsty where there were originally 5 pigs, and then one was put in, but the food was still the same as before, so the food that the previous 5 pigs could eat would be reduced. The epidemic is serious again, and I have been doing nucleic acid for a morning. Everyone should pay attention to protection when they go out. Next, Chu Zhongtian kept chatting with Zhang Yi about some unnutritious topics, trying to get some questions that Zhang Yi was unwilling to answer. Soon, Xiao Bai came here with Hu Kankan. Bang! Xiao Bai unceremoniously put Hu Kankan still on the ground. Of course, Xiao Bai's doing this was controlled by Zhang Yi. For Hu Kankan, who ripped a hair from Xian Yi's body, he didn't have a good impression at all. At this time, Hu Kankan's clothes had become strips, and through the torn clothes, it could be seen that there were many small wounds on his body. These wounds are not fatal, but they are excruciatingly painful. The blood from his wounds stained his clothes red, and he looked miserable. Here, how did Professor Hu become like this? Chu Zhongtian looked at Zhang Yi with some anger. It was impossible for his people to treat Hu Kankan like this, so the culprit who caused Hu Kankan's current appearance can be imagined. It was Zhang Yi. Even if it wasn't him, he ordered the steel giant beast to do it. You said him, what he has on him is just a little interest that I asked Xiao Bai to collect for me first. You. Chu Zhongtian was very angry. Zhang Yi was provoking, it was a naked provocation. Not only captured Hu Kankan, who he sent away, but also made him look like this. Angry is angry. Chu Zhongtian is not a person who is angry. He calmed down and said, just now, Mr. Sect Master, you said that you arrested Hu Kankan for me. Can you tell me the reason now? Of course, you let your people look at Hu Kankan's palm. After Zhang Yi finished speaking, Chu Zhongtian came to Hu Kankan's side in person. Looking at Hu Kankan, who was covered in bruises, Chu Zhongtian felt a little unbearable, but in order to investigate what Zhang Yi meant, he still forcibly broke Hu Kankan's clenched fingers. Hu Kankan, who had already fallen into a coma, suddenly woke up in pain under Chu Zhongtian's force. Ah, there's a monster, don't come here, don't eat me. When Hu Kankan woke up, he kicked his legs with snot and tears, trying to retreat. Professor Hu is me, it's me, Chu Zhongtian. Chu Zhongtian hurriedly held down Hu Kankan, trying to calm his emotions. After a long time, Hu Kankan slowly calmed down, and when he saw clearly that the person holding him down was Chu Zhongtian, it was like grabbing a life-saving straw. Captain Chu, quick, that steel monster has come back to life, kill it, kill it. Before Chu Zhongtian could speak, Zhang Ye's voice came from behind him. Is it the one you're going to kill? As he spoke, a huge, rusty tiger head stretched out, only 2 centimeters from the tip of Hu Kankan's nose. Ah! Hu Kankan, who had just woken up, tilted his forehead back after seeing the tiger head clinging to him, and fainted gloriously again. You! Chu Zhongtian didn't know what to say. A tiger head suddenly crossed behind him and stayed in front of him. Is it okay to shout like this? Of course, scaring himself is secondary. This professor who just woke up and was scared over, how did he ask? Hee, I suggest you take a look at what he's holding, right? After Zhang Yi finished speaking, Chu Zhongtian didn't react. Hu Kankan suddenly woke up just now. He only cared about calming Hu Kankan's emotions, and didn't check what Hu Kankan was holding in his hand. After Chu Zhongtian broke Hu Kankan's fingers, a hair suddenly appeared in the palm of his hand. Is this a hair? Suddenly, Chu Zhongtian felt that he had been tricked by Zhang Yi. Shouldn't you explain, Mr. Master, what's all the fuss about a hair? Hee, the hair doesn't matter, but don't you want to know whose hair it is? Whose? You'll have to ask your Professor Hu about this. Chu Zhongtian just wanted to open his mouth. What do you call my Professor Hu? However, before he could say anything, he saw Zhang Yi take out a bottle of medical alcohol from the medical bag he brought. What are you going to do? Of course, I helped you wake up Professor Hu. Don't thank me, this is what I should do. After speaking, Zhang Yi unscrewed the cap of the alcohol bottle and poured the alcohol on Hu Kankan's body in one go. Hu Kankan's body was full of large and small wounds caused by Xiao Bai, and when he saw the alcohol, he was instantly woken up in pain. The smell of alcohol poured over the wound made Hu Kankan die and live, rolling around on the ground, wailing constantly. No, he's awake, you can ask him whose hair it is. Chu Zhongtian glanced at Zhang Yi. I can ask, but can Professor Hu answer like this? Now he can only lie on the ground and scream. Is there any water? Ignoring Zhang Yi, Chu Zhongtian shouted at Exploration Xiaosui that he wanted to use water to remove the alcohol from Hu Kankan's body. No, I've got you ready. At this time, Zhang Yifart took a few bottles of mineral water and put them beside Chu Zhongtian. You. Chu Zhongtian looked at Zhang Yi suspiciously and said, Are you so kind to help me get water? No, believe it or not, you see that these mineral waters haven't opened their mouths yet. What can I do? Since you don't want it, then I'm taking it back. Zhang Yi said, gesturing to take back the mineral water on the ground. Don't, I believe in you, I believe in you. Looking at the painful dead and alive Hu Kankan on the ground, Chu Zhongtian didn't want to waste time, even for a second. As he spoke, Chu Zhongtian picked up a bottle of mineral water and said to Hu Kankan, Professor Hu, I'm sorry, I can only pour water directly on you in this situation. Hu Kankan was rolling on the ground in pain at this time, and finally turned over and said weakly to Chu Zhongtian, Hurry, hurry, hurry. Okay, I'm down. As he spoke, Chu Zhongtian unscrewed the cap of the bottle and poured it towards Hu Kankan. It doesn't matter, Hu Kankan's screams are even louder. This made Chu Zhongtian's hand holding the mineral water bottle stop in mid-air, but it wasn't, it didn't pour. This is mineral water, right? Chu Zhongtian immediately suspected that Zhang Yi had replaced the water in the bottle with alcohol, but it was wrong when he thought about it. When he twisted the cap just now, the cap and the body of the bottle were connected, and it was definitely the first time he opened it, and he smelled the bottle, and there was no smell of alcohol at all. What's wrong? Zhang Yi was egging on the side. Chu Zhongtian looked at Zhang Yi and said angrily, Why did it fall? Did you see that Professor Hu was more painful after falling down? Isn't this normal? After pouring water, the water will flow over the wound, which will naturally make it more painful, but it will be good when the water runs out. This. Seeing that Chu Zhongtian was still hesitating, Zhang Yi said again, It's like we go to a bath in hot water. When we just go down, it feels very hot and painful, but after a long time, the pain decreases, but once you walk around in the water, it will be even more painful. Do you want Professor Hu to be tortured by alcohol all the time? Zhang Yi persuaded earnestly, as if everything was for Hu Can. Chu Zhongtian looked at Zhang Yi in surprise. Are you so good? Aren't the injuries on Professor Hu's body caused by you? Didn't you pour the alcohol on his body? Why do you now have a face that cares about Professor Hu? However, Chu Zhongtian thought about it, and what Zhang Yi said did make sense. So he was ruthless, no longer caring about Hu Kankan's screams. He turned his head to the side, and began to sprinkle mineral water on the crazy Wang Hu Can. It was precisely because Chu Zhongtian twisted his head that he didn't see the nonsense expression on the ground. I saw Hu Can wailing in pain, wanting to open his mouth to speak, but the next second he was interrupted by pain, and he could only scream on the ground. Unable to speak, Hu Can had no choice but to shake his head, but Chu Zhongtian didn't look at him at all. When the mineral water was just poured on him, Hu Can felt that this mineral water was not real, and it was definitely added to it. Because when mineral water comes into contact with a wound, the pain is stronger than alcohol. The feeling of tearing at the wound made Hu Can, a biologist, think of something for the first time. That's salt. But it's useless to know, and now the in front of him is pouring salt water on himself vigorously. I'm done. Professor Hu looked at the mineral water pouring towards him, and a few tears were unconsciously left in the corners of his eyes. Saline has antiviral effects, but the sodium and chloride ions in saline can also cause rapid dehydration of cells in the wound, thereby enlarging the wound. It doesn't matter if it's a small wound or two, but just now I was played with by that steel monster like a cat scratching a mouse for a long time, and the ghost knows how many wounds he has on his body. In short, it's dense. I have to say that Chu Zhongtian, who is a soldier, is a good man, and the 6 bottles of mineral water were quickly poured. As Chu Zhongtian's mineral water was poured, Hu Can, who was lying on the ground, wailed even more heartbreakingly. That kind of pain is miserable with despair. It is really sad for those who hear it, and those who see it cry. Something is wrong. At this time, Chu Zhongtian also reflected. It stands to reason that he got 6 bottles of mineral water, which was enough to wash away the alcohol that Zhang Yi had poured on Professor Hu before, but why did Professor Hu shout even worse now? Thinking of this, Chu Zhongtian hurriedly looked at Hu Can, but saw 2 lines of tears on Hu Kan's face, a loveless appearance. Why are you still crying? Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. At this time, Zhang Yi laughed out loud out of place. You. What the hell did you? Things have come to this point, Chu Zhongtian still doesn't understand that he was tricked by Zhang Yi. Ha ha ha, no, I'm laughing to death. This time I really didn't see what it means to put salt on a wound. What? Are you saying that I just poured on Professor Hu? Ha ha ha, that's right, it's salt water, I made it myself. Zhang Yi stood up straight and said. This time it's really, Chu Zhongtian is angry. How can you do that? You're already murdered, you know. Oh, I'm murdering, what are you? You know, but you poured salt water on him with your own hands. You. Chu Zhong didn't know what to say, so he had to stare at Zhang Yi angrily. Captain Chu, let's go and get some real mineral water to help Professor Hu clean up his wounds. At this time, the Bluetooth headset carried by Chu Zhongtian came from Shen Guoyang's voice. After hearing Shen Guoyang's words, Chu Zhongtian hurriedly asked his men to go down to get mineral water, during which Zhang Yi wanted to help, but Chu Zhongtian directly refused, and he didn't even let Zhang Yi touch the water bottle. You go and ask the sect leader whose hair it is. According to the sect leader's past style of acting, it shouldn't be aimed at Professor Hu for no reason. I think it should have something to do with that hair. Shen Guoyang's voice came again, and Chu Zhongtian asked Zhang Yi after hearing it. No, that hair belongs to that one. Zhang Yi pointed to Xian Yi, who was sitting on the ground. His. Chu Zhongtian looked at the place of Zhang Yi's finger in surprise. he didn't understand why Professor Hu had a hair of Xuanyi. Then he thought that Shen Guoyang on the other end of the phone was waiting for an answer, so he said, "Why did Professor Hu take one of Xian Yi's hairs?" He was asking Zhang Yi about this question, and he was also indirectly telling Shen Guoyang that the hair in Hu Kankan's hand was Xuanyi. "You ask me, I ask who to go." Zhang Yi didn't know the purpose of Hu Kankan taking Xian Yi's hair, but he had some ideas in his heart. "I think I'll take it out and do research, and I want you to investigate it." Saying what he thought in his heart, Zhang Yi pinched the hair and sent it back to Xian Yi's body. "Do your research." Shen Guoyang on the other end of the phone said to himself, and then ordered someone to investigate Hu Kankan. Soon, Shen Guoyang had a copy of information about Hu Kankan in his hand. Looking at the content on the information, Shen Guoyang became more and more angry, and finally slammed the information on the table. "I don't know if I don't check this, and I'm shocked when I check it. The materials are full of evidence that Hu Kankan has released some research materials and international secrets to scandalous countries. Although this information is not very important in the Dragon Kingdom, it will cause damage to the Dragon Kingdom to a greater or lesser extent, and these small losses may seem insignificant, but the accumulation is also considerable." These are not what Shen Guoyang is most angry about. The thing he is most angry about as a university professor is that he is suspicious of wanting to get a green card from an ugly country, so as to damage the interests of the country. Such a professor can educate children. Can he cultivate pillars for the country? This does not cultivate a traitor. Shen Guoyang can steal the fun. And even if Hu Kankan does this, he can't get into the eyes of the ugly country. Isn't this purely losing the face of the dragon country? Captain Chu, immediately arrest Hu Kankan and press it back to the National Security Bureau. Director Shen, why is that? Just now we have investigated Hu Kankan and checked his computer stored in Longdong University of Science and Technology. There is a lot of information on the computer that he sent state secrets to the ugly country, and now we will arrest him for treason. After hearing Shen Guoyang's words, Chu Zhongtian was stunned at first, and then looked at Hu Kankan who was lying on the ground and was being cleaned of salt water. "Don't wash his wounds anymore." Chu Zhongtian suppressed the anger in his heart and said. The busy soldier was stunned for a moment after hearing this, and then left Hu Kankan's side. "Chu. How did Captain Chu? What's the matter?" "Wash my wounds. I haven't cleaned my back and thighs yet." Clean the fart." Chu Zhongtian looked at Hu Kankan and couldn't help but burst into foul language. He didn't expect that the well-dressed university professor on weekdays turned out to be a traitor. Coincidentally, what he hates the most is traitors, thinking that these soldiers are born and die for national security, but they are stabbed in the back by people like Hu Kankan, and anyone will be angry. Although I didn't understand why Chu Zhongtian's attitude towards Professor Hu suddenly changed, as a soldier, he just had to carry out orders, so he didn't ask too much. But the other professors on the exploration team won't ignore it. "Captain Chu, what are you doing here?" Professor Yuan asked puzzledly. "Professor Hu is going to continue treatment now. What do you mean by taking him away? What's not interesting?" Didn't you see that Professor Hu has been officially arrested?" "Arrested, just because he took a piece of Xian Yi's hair?" Professor Yuan looked at Chu Zhongtian puzzled. In her cognition, a hair can be regarded as nothing, and it is not a precious antique. I've just said that no one is allowed to touch anything here without my permission. Are you playing with me?" Chu Zhongtian shouted angrily. He knew that these professors were arrogant and did not belong to the same system as himself, so he was more or less concerned about what he said. "Coincidentally, you can deter them with nonsense. The hair that Professor Hu took was to be sent to the ugly kingdom for research, and we have found out that he has sold the news of the Dragon Kingdom to the ugly kingdom many times." Chu Zhongtian said with a sneer. This time, the explorers who were originally still a little disobedient came down honestly. "Mr. Master, can you take us to the location of the creation furnace?" Having already promised that Zhang Yi did not understand the corpses of Xian Yi and the 3,000 villagers of Bio village, Chu Zhongtian once again paid attention to the body of the creation furnace. Okay. Zhang Yi agreed to them very decisively. He couldn't take the furnace anyway, and only he could open the warehouse where the furnace was located, and only he could use the furnace. No, there should be a Dr. Zhao now. After Dr. Zhao can skillfully use his abilities, he will also be able to use the creation furnace, but it will be a little difficult to awaken people, so he can only simply help people treat physical diseases. After all, the final effect of using the furnace still depends on the cultivation attainments of the furnace holder. Soon, everyone followed Zhang Yi to the door of the warehouse. Everyone looked around the warehouse, but they couldn't find the door of the warehouse. Mr. Master, this is... Zhang Yi Wenyan spread his hands, indicating that he could not help. You just asked me to take you to the location of the creation furnace, and now that I have brought you here, it is up to you whether you can go in or not. Zhang Yi's appearance of a dead pig in clothes who was not afraid of boiling water made Chu Zhongtian want to beat him when he looked at it, but his own strength was limited, let alone beating Zhang Yi. He had to thank God for beating him into a pig's head. Chu Zhongtian didn't speak. He didn't want to ask Zhang Yi too much, anyway. He already knew that the creation furnace was in this warehouse, and he was not in a hurry at this time. Isn't it just a warehouse? Today is the artillery bombardment, and a gap will be opened. So, adhering to the principle of self-sufficiency, Chu Zhong sent a chainsaw. For a while, sparks flew outside the warehouse, Chu Zhongtian and they were busy for more than 10 minutes, and the saw blade of the chainsaw had been seriously damaged, but there was not even a single scratch on the outside of the warehouse. This. Looking at the damaged chainsaw, Chu Zhongtian was a little suspicious of life. You know, the chainsaw in his hand is used to cut steel bars, concrete, and other things. As a result, I sawed myself up here. Is this warehouse made of diamonds? Bring another one. Chu Zhongtian shouted unbelievingly, put on a new chainsaw, found a new position and started to get busy. More than 10 minutes passed, and I saw Chu Zhongtian ruthlessly put the chainsaw in his hand on the ground, and the saw blade on the chainsaw was the same as the previous one, which had been worn out and lost its sawtooth. Look at the warehouse again, the appearance is as good as new. This. Looking at the warehouse where there was nothing to do, Chu Zhongtian was speechless. There has not been a good thing since he came to Bio village, all thanks to that man. Well, Mr. Master, do you see if you can open this warehouse? There's no way, you have to admit it when it's time to admit it. Chu Zhongtian rubbed his hands together and came to Zhang Yi with a wry smile. Oh, don't you need me, don't you want to be self-sufficient? Hee, this. It's all because I'm too young, he's easy to get pushy. Young. Zhang Yi looked at Chu Zhongtian, and said that his father probably had someone believe him, and he was still young. Captain Chu, do you know what the furnace means? Zhang Yi's originally playful face instantly became extremely solemn. He is a dragon countryman, so he also wants to help the dragon kingdom increase its strength, but not using the creation furnace. The creation furnace can make ordinary people awaken to become aliens, which can be hundreds of times stronger than ordinary people, but it can also infinitely magnify the dark side of human hearts. Once there is a new inhuman misdemeanor, not only will it not enhance the strength of the Dragon Kingdom, but it will also bring a series of troubles to the Dragon Kingdom. This is the experience that Zhang Yi summed up from the experience of Xuanyi in his dream. It's. I know the pros and cons of everything, don't worry, Master, we will use the creation furnace carefully. Cautious, Xuanyi was also cautious at the beginning, but it wasn't for Bio village to be destroyed. Zhang Yi smiled bitterly. The 100,000 army in his dream was overwhelming, and the subsequent sneak attack of the Inhumans was definitely not a coincidence, it was definitely carefully calculated by someone. Mr. Sect Master, our Dragon Kingdom is different from Bio village, we have a strong military force, enough to resist all the forces that covet the creation furnace. You still don't understand what I mean. Let me ask you one more question. How will the country treat strangers and ordinary people only have a relationship? This is the reason why Zhang Yi is reluctant to let the country use the furnace now. Compared with ordinary people, inhumans are definitely panda-like beings, so the problem arises, inhumans and ordinary people will become two different levels of existence. This, of course, is equal treatment. Chu Zhongtian hesitated for a moment, and then said such an answer. He, do you believe this yourself? Zhang Yi asked rhetorically, and then said leisurely, it's not yet time to build a furnace for you, the aura in the world does not allow it, and you are not ready. When the time comes, I will naturally come to Bio Village again to help you use the furnace. Zhang Yi looked at the dome of Bio Village and said leisurely, I don't know why, he always has a feeling that the sky in this world is about to change. And the root of this change is yourself, no, to be precise, it should be your own dream. After hearing Zhang Ye's words, Chu Zhongtian's eyes lit up, and he said excitedly, Mr. Sect Master, do you mean to help us only use the creation furnace? Well, but not now. This. Hopefully that day will come soon. Trust me, you wouldn't want that day to come. Okay, this trip can be regarded as a successful end, if there is fate, we should meet soon. Zhang Yi said and prepared to leave. However, at this moment, a figure quickly burst out of the exploration team. The speed of the figure is extremely fast, which is not at all something that an ordinary person can do. Soon, the figure came to Zhang Yi, and then knelt down with a thud. This figure is none other than Zhou Tian. Zhou. Professor Zhou, what are you doing here? Chu Zhongtian asked in surprise. When Zhou Tian rushed out just now, he was really startled, thinking that someone was attacking Zhang Yi, and it wasn't until Zhou Tian knelt down that he saw the true face of the figure. Zhou Tian, who was kneeling on the ground, did not answer Chu Zhongtian's question, but kept kowtowing to Zhang Yi. Please, sir, save my daughter. Looking at Zhou Tian, who kept kowtowing for help, Zhang Yi's expression was solemn, and he said after a long time, you are a stranger. Hearing Zhang Yi's words, Chu Zhongtian was taken aback, and then looked at Zhou Tian again. Zhou. Professor Zhou, what Mr. Sect Master said is true. After Zhang Yi told his biggest secret, Zhou Tian stopped kowtowing, but he didn't get up, he raised his head and nodded at Chu Zhongtian. Yes, I'm an alien too. Hearing Zhou Tian's answer, everyone present was shocked, they didn't expect that this person who was traveling with him turned out to be a stranger. The qi in your body has almost dissipated, and your ability is about to disappear. Zhang Yi carefully observed this week, this was the first stranger he had seen, and he was naturally very curious. It's worthy of Mr. Sect Master, you can see my physical condition at a glance. As far as I know, there shouldn't be a second inhuman in this world, except for the one made by the creation furnace, of course. This. After Zhou Tian heard Zhang Ye's words, he wanted to say something but didn't dare to say it, and finally swallowed it stiffly. So can you tell me how you woke up? I was born with abilities, not an acquired. Impossible. Zhang Yi directly interrupted Zhou Tian's words, not to mention modern society, even if the aura of 400 years is more abundant than now, it is not enough for people to have natural abilities. Mr. Sect Master, what you said is right, but our family's ability is very strange, it is a physical ability, so it has been inherited from each generation, as for our ancestor, his name is Zhou Qian. Zhou Tian's voice was extremely low when he said Zhou Gan's name, and if it weren't for Zhang Ye's cultivation of divine skills, he wouldn't even be able to hear it. What are you talking about, Zhou Qian? After hearing this name, Zhang Yi was furious and immediately murderous. Everyone present suddenly felt that the shadow of death was enveloping them, and this feeling Chu Zhongtian felt the strongest. After all, except for Zhou Tian, he was the closest person to Zhang Yi. This. What's going on? Chu Zhongtian didn't know why, and he forced his trembling body to stay away from Zhang Yi. Zhang Ye's killing intent is not simple, after all, Xian Yi killed tens of thousands of Qin troops in his dream, which can be regarded as Zhang Ye's personal experience. And Zhou Tian, who was kneeling on the ground, still didn't move, as an alien, the pressure he could withstand was easier than that of Chu Zhongtian and them. Soon, Zhang Yi realized his gaffe and instantly dispersed his killing intent, but his face was as cold as ice. So, you are a descendant of Zhou Qian? Yes. Then you still dare to come to me for help? Now you are the only one who can save my daughter. As long as you can save my daughter, you will kill or listen to your son. Oh, yes. Yes. Zhang Yi smiled angrily. The conversation between the two of them made Chu Zhongtian listen to it in a fog, and he felt that he and Zhang Yi were not on the same line. Teach. Mr. Sect Master, what do you two mean by that? Who is Zhou Qian? Zhou Qian, heh. That's an ungrateful bastard. Zhang Yi thought that Xian Yi treated Zhou Gan's injuries in his dream and saved his life, but in the end, Xian Yi died because of Zhou Gan's sneak attack, and scolded angrily for a while. Huh. Zhou Qian is the culprit who finally attacked Xian Yi and killed Xian Yi. Zhang Yi almost gritted his teeth and uttered this sentence. What? Chu Zhongtian was taken aback. He didn't expect Zhou Tian's origin to be so big, and then he stood between Zhang Yi and Zhou Tian. Mr. Sect Master, don't worry, we will take it to the National Security Bureau for a good interrogation on Sunday, and make him pay the price for this matter. Chu Zhongtian said fiercely. His words were full of grievances for Xian Yi, but he actually wanted to keep Zhou Tian. Zhou Tian's family has been passed down from 400 years to modern times, and his ancestors are still people who have a deep intersection with Bio Village. I believe they can learn more about Bio Village from Zhou Tian, and even get some exercises about cultivation. Oh, yes, if you want to give me an explanation, then arrest Zhou Tian's whole family now and let me deal with it. Zhang Yi looked at Chu Zhongtian meaningfully. He is not a fool, how can he not see what Chu Zhongtian means? This. Chu Zhongtian was hesitant, and he couldn't jump out of a fart for a long time. Come on, more than 400 years have passed, Zhou Qian has been killed by Xian Yi, all grievances have been settled, as long as the Zhou family doesn't mess with me, I naturally won't make a move on them. After hearing Zhang Ye's words, Chu Zhongtian breathed a sigh of relief. Mr. Master, please save my daughter. I will repay you for being a cow and a horse. Zhou Tian was still kneeling on the ground and kowtowing, his forehead had been broken, and the ground that touched his forehead was already bright red. Okay, don't knock, tell me about your daughter. Zhang Yi didn't know whether he was a little impatient by Zhou Tian or moved by Zhou Tian's true feelings, so he asked. Although the ability of our family has been inherited, but the generation is not as good as the generation, until my daughter not only did not gain the ability, but the physical quality is far inferior to ordinary people. Seeing that my daughter's body is not as good as a day by day, I finally made a bold decision, that is, to say that my own qi is sent into my daughter's body. At first this is still effective, but as I convey more and more qi, those qi began to rampage in my daughter's body. And all the hospitals are helpless, so now you are a dog, and my girl's only is you, the sect leader. There is a record of the furnace in my family, please use the furnace to save my daughter's life. She's only 18 years old, she shouldn't have died too soon. Zhou Tian knelt on the ground with a handful of tears and begged. Tell me, what do you have to do in your family? Zhang Yi did not say that he would not save Zhou Tian's daughter, nor did he say that he would save him, but asked Zhou Tian to tell him about the record of his family. Zhou Tian, who was kneeling on the ground, was stunned for a moment, and then showed a surprised expression. Although Zhang Yi did not promise to save his daughter, he asked him to tell the historical record of the family, which proved that there was still hope. Our ancestor is named Zhou Qian, who was originally an official at the end of the Ming dynasty, and after the Ming dynasty was destroyed by the Qing government, he was bent on opposing the Qing dynasty and restoring the Ming dynasty. In the Battle of Yichang to break through the encirclement of the Qing army, although my ancestor escaped but was also seriously wounded, he was later rescued by a villager in Bio Village and brought back to Bio Village. After hearing Zhou Tian's words, Zhang Yi nodded. What Zhou Tian said was the truth, In the dream, Zhou Qian was indeed rescued by a village name in Biao village, and then received treatment from Xian Yi. My ancestor suddenly awakened a very special ability when he was treated. He was originally a civil official, his body was extremely weak, but since then he has been able to carry the crown. Later, my ancestors wandered around Biao village and learned that when he was seriously injured and unconscious, he was treated by the village chief using a machine called the creation furnace, which can not only treat physical diseases, but also help some people awaken special abilities. After knowing this, my ancestors began to persuade the village chief of Biao village, hoping that he would help my ancestors complete the great cause of fighting against the Qing dynasty and restoring the Ming dynasty. However, the village chief did not enter the oil and salt, and always did not agree to the request of the ancestors. My ancestors were very angry about it, thinking that the village chief of Biao village was guarding a treasure but didn't know how to use it. Later, my ancestors gradually became familiar with the abilities that they suddenly acquired, and then they had the idea of leaving Biao village. But he also heard something about the days he lived in Biao village, that is, all the people who came to Biao village to see a doctor, if they didn't want to stay in Biao village, they had to erase their memories of the furnace before they were cured and left. My ancestors are also planning to use the creation furnace to create a group of aliens to oppose the Qing dynasty and restore their sites. How can it be possible for the village chief to erase his memory of the creation furnace? So before leaving, he recorded what he saw and heard in Biao village in written form, and then thought that the village chief had made a request to leave. Biao village has no restrictions on the villagers' own, as long as they want to leave the village chief, they will agree, and naturally they will not refuse my ancestors' request. After my ancestors were erased from their memories of the furnace and their abilities, they left Biao village. In the days that followed, my ancestor watched several times about what he had seen and heard in Biao village, and remained skeptical. Until one day, my ancestors were surrounded by the Qing army again, and the battle was tragic, and my ancestors suddenly had a force in their bodies at a critical juncture, that is, at what time, my ancestors regained their erased memories for unknown reasons, and the lost abilities were also restored. My ancestors also repelled the encirclement and suppression of the Qing army. When Zhang Yi heard this, he touched his chin thoughtfully. The memories and abilities that were erased by using the creation furnace were actually sealed, but which seal could not be opened by oneself, but it was not like an accident, and at the critical juncture, Zhou Qian's seal was unbroken by himself. Maybe that's the potential of people. You go on. After regaining his memory, my ancestors started the idea of creating a furnace. But with his strength, even if he had regained his ability, some of his subordinates would not be able to snatch the furnace stored in Biao village, so he set up a game. My ancestors began to convey the magic of Biao village, and the village chief of Biao village held the secret of immortality to Zijin city. As my ancestors expected, Huang Taiji really became interested in Xuanyi compared to Biao village. So Huang Taiji began to send people to investigate, and found that many terminally ill people who went to Biao village to seek treatment would be cured, but they didn't know anything about how Biao village was treated. In this regard, Huang Taiji began to slowly believe that Xian Yi, the village chief of Biao village, held the secret of immortality. At first, Huang Taiji made a few orders to let Xian Yi enter the palace to meet him, but they were all rejected by Xian Yi. Although my ancestor has not been in Biao village for a long time, he has experienced several experiences of persuading Xian Yi to help him regain his sight from the Qing dynasty, and he thinks that he knows Xian Yi very well, and knows that Xian Yi will never enter the Vanity Fair of Zijin Palace. Then my ancestors took advantage of their connections to spread the false news that Biao village's private armed forces were the main stronghold of the anti-Qing and Ming restoration forces, and that they reached Huang Taiji's ears. After hearing the news, Huang Taiji, who had been rejected by Xian Yi several times in a row, was furious and began to order the assembly of troops to prepare to destroy Biao village and capture Xian Yi alive. So the 100,000 army sharpened their swords and Huo marched towards Biao village. Speaking of this, Zhou Tian glanced up at Zhang Yi and found that Zhang Yi had no sorrow or joy, no worries, and no anger. He, what a plan, not only weakening the power of the Qin government, but also allowing Bio village to suffer a catastrophe, and then take the opportunity to snatch the furnace. I'm afraid that Huang Taiji won't know until he dies that the core of Bio village is the creation furnace. Even if the Qin army wins, it will only capture Xian Yi and ignore the creation furnace, and then let Zhou Qian pick up a bargain. Zhang Yi looked at Xian Yi and said, "So I don't agree with your concept, your ideal is just a fairy tale world, but we live in reality. What happened later is not recorded by the ancestors, and after he followed the 100,000 army to Bio village, he did not return. Later, when our family had no money, we would go to the location of Bio village recorded by our ancestors, but we could never find Bio village, and some were just a wasteland. Until the news 2 days ago said that an underground space was dug up, and there was an ancient village in the space. I checked it and found that it was the same as the location of Bio village recorded by my ancestors, so I applied to be a member of the exploration team, hoping to find the miraculous furnace recorded by my ancestors to save my daughter." At this point, Zhou Tian finished telling his story, and the people around him were also fascinated. No one thought that the culprit of the bones of the 100,000 army outside and the disappearance of Bio village was Zhou Tian's ancestors. "Sir, I've said everything I have to say, please save my daughter." As he spoke, Zhou Tian slammed his head on the ground. 666, I didn't expect the real history to be so exciting. I always feel that what I experience today is all false, and it is a group of people playing us. Upstairs, accept the facts, how can the acting be so realistic? Do you think the sect leader will save that Zhou Tian's daughter? Definitely not, after all, it's the offspring of the enemy, and no one will save it, right? More than 400 years have passed, is it necessary to still hold grudges? I would like to call the sect leader the most resentful person. There is no one, do not accept refutation, anyway, you live for more than 400 years. I feel that the sect leader will be Professor Zhou's daughter. After all, the sect leader is not Xian Yi. It's like being an alien. Does the sect master still accept Christians? When Zhou Tian narrated, the cameraman pointed the live camera at Zhou Tian with Chu Zhongtian's permission, and the audience in the live broadcast room naturally learned about this little-known history. You can save your girl, but there is also one condition. After a long time, Zhang Yi spoke. After hearing Zhang Ye's words, Zhou Tian was very excited. His daughter was finally saved. "Mr. Sect Master, if you have any requests, I will definitely agree to you," Zhou Tian said excitedly. "I can save your daughter, but you will stay here for the rest of your life, and you can't let outsiders disturb their peace." Zhang Yi pointed to the huge coffin and Xian Yi said, "Okay, I promise." Zhou Tian did not hesitate and directly agreed to Zhang Ye's request. "Go and bring your daughter here. I'll only be here for an hour." "No, it won't take an hour for me to bring my daughter back when I come back, and she's in a hotel at the entrance to the underground space. I'm going to call my daughter-in-law and bring him over." Zhou Tian took out the phone with trembling hands, asked his wife to bring his daughter over, and then looked at Chu Zhongtian. He knew that it was not enough for Zhang Yi to agree. There was an army guarding the entrance of the underground space, and his wife and daughter would not have a chance to come down at all. Before Zhou Tian could speak, Chu Zhongtian knew what he was going to say. "Don't worry, I've given an order, and when your wife and daughter come down, someone will send them over, and they won't stop you." Thank you, Captain Chu." Agreeing to Zhou Tian's wife and daughter to enter the underground space can not only bring in the relationship with Zhou Tian, but also be able to witness how Zhanye City opens the warehouse and uses the furnace. Soon, 4 soldiers came to the huge coffin with 2 women, one of whom was, should say the girl, carried on a stretcher. I think the woman on the stretcher is Zhou Tian's daughter. "Mr. Sect Master, this is my daughter Zhou Shi." "Well, I see." Zhang Yi then walked next to Zhou Shi, who was lying on a stretcher. The girl is very good looking, and if she debuts, I believe she will be able to become popular. Zhang Yi put his hand on Zhou Shi's wrist, which was not a good idea, but a pulse in traditional Chinese medicine. Speaking of traditional Chinese medicine, this is all thanks to Xian Yi in the dream. Xian Yi followed his master idiot to travel around in the past few years, and the idiot Taoist taught the most proud Chinese medicine skills to Xian Yi. Naturally, Zhang Yi also learned the skill of traditional Chinese medicine. The breath is disordered, there is a rampant qi in the body, I am afraid that it will not be long before this little girl will die. I'm glad I met myself. Zhang Yi thought in his heart, so he let go of Zhou Shi's wrist and turned to leave. Teach. Mr. Master, how is my daughter? Zhang Yi, who was walking towards the warehouse, stopped after hearing Zhou Tian's words, turned his head angrily and said, Are you embarrassed to ask, if you hadn't channeled your own qi into your daughter's body, I'm afraid your daughter would have awakened successfully by now. After hearing Zhang Ye's words, Zhou Tian was like being struck by a thunderbolt, and he stood in place. Teach. What do you mean by that, master? What do you mean? Hee, I'm afraid you'll break down if you say it. You say, I can withstand anything. Well, in fact, your girl has awakened her abilities from the beginning and is a congenital alien. What? Zhou Tian was taken aback, and then said, Impossible, our family's ability has always been to enhance the strength of the body, but why has my daughter been weak and sick since she was a child? That's because your daughter was born prematurely, so the meridians of the whole body are not fully developed, although it is the awakening ability, but the qi in the body cannot be unblocked, which gives the illusion of being weak and sick. As for the getting more and more serious later, it was because of the side effects of the qi in her body when it opened up the meridians for her, which seemed to be serious, but in fact it was only good for the human body and not harmful, as long as it was boiled up, it would pass. It's a pity that you don't understand anything, and you transport your own qi into your daughter's body, which also leads to a big fight between the two qi in her body, resulting in the rupture of the vein that has just opened, and there is no medicine for the stone. Huh. After hearing Zhang Ye's answer, Zhou Tianji stood in place in a daze. Now he was speechless, he only felt full of remorse. It turned out that the pain suffered by his daughter was caused by himself. Hurry up, don't feel bad, don't you want to save your daughter? Seeing that Zhou Tian was still standing still, with faint signs of going mad, Zhang Yi turned around and shouted. Hearing that he was going to save his daughter, Zhou Tian woke up from his remorse. Come in with your daughter. As he spoke, Zhang Yeto walked towards the warehouse without looking back. Zhou Tian hugged Zhou Shi and followed closely. Walking to the edge of the warehouse, Zhang Yi put his hand on the wall of the warehouse, and transported the qi generated by the cultivation of the divine skill to the inside of the wall, and then something happened that made everyone unbelievable. The outline of a door gradually appeared on the originally smooth warehouse wall, until it was finally fully revealed, and was pushed open by Zhang Yi. Is this fucking fingerprint unlock? Damn, did you have such high technology in ancient times? Invisible door and fingerprint unlocking, I'm afraid that the shield in the ugly country doesn't have such technology. Is this the magic of God-level refinement? Press your little hand, and open any door. If I had this hand, wouldn't it be an invincible hand in the world? Ahem, upstairs, pay attention, there are many internet police in the live broadcast room. Open the door upstairs and check the water meter. I'm afraid this is the safest door in the world. All of a sudden, such a thought flashed through everyone's minds. Everyone followed Zhang Yi into the warehouse. The goal is an intricate intertwining of various pipes. Go, put your daughter in that stove. Zhang Yi pointed to the end of the furnace, and when Zhou Tian saw this, he hurriedly took Zhou Shi and walked to the place Zhang Yi pointed out, and put Zhou Jing inside. You guys, all go out. Zhang Yi looked at the people who followed up, and controlling the creation furnace was a very quiet thing. After entering the furnace, Zhang Yi had to steal it wholeheartedly, and it was easy to fail if he was disturbed during the period, and the furnace would be damaged, or 2 people would die. Therefore, Xian Yi in the dream created such a warehouse, and people outside could not enter it at all, and no matter how he knocked on this warehouse, there would be no movement inside. Mr. Master, can you let us watch it? Zhou Tian and Chu Zhongtian hadn't spoken yet, and when they saw Cui Dongxing, they asked. No, get out. It's. Mr. Master, we just watched you use the furnace to prove that the contents of the previous parchment scroll were correct, and there was no other meaning. Cui Dongxing thought that Zhang Yi was afraid that they would secretly learn how to use the creation furnace, so he drove them out of here, so he explained. I said, all of you leave. Don't make me say it a 4th time. Zhang Yi was very angry. Couldn't this person understand people's words? Captain Chu, if you can't control your people, then I don't mind taking care of it for you. Zhang Yi said with a frosty face. Chu Zhongtian also heard the anger from Zhang Ye's words, and stopped talking, waving his hand to signal everyone to leave. Seeing that Chu Zhongtian was the first to leave, and the others also left, only Cui Dongxing was already not moving. He really wanted to see Zhang Yi manipulate the creation furnace to treat Zhou Shi, so that he could be 100% sure that the content on the parchment scroll was true, even if it was a price, it didn't matter. Seeing everyone leaving, Cui Dongxing still had no intention of leaving, and the chill on Zhang Ye's face became even heavier. This person wants to see himself control the creation furnace, and his name at that time can be said to be completely in the hands of Cui Dongxing. How could Zhang Yi allow such a thing? So this time Zhang Yi is really angry. Just as Zhang Yi was about to teach Cui Dongxing a lesson, Zhou Tian, who was about to walk out, came back again. He grabbed Cui Dongxing's neck, and said fiercely, Mr. Sect Leader is now treating my daughter, I hope you can go out, don't know what to do. After speaking, Zhou Tian shook his arm and threw Cui Dongxing out, and then turned around and bowed to Zhang Yi. I'm sorry for you. After speaking, Zhou Tian strode out of the warehouse without looking back. When everyone left the warehouse, the doors of the warehouse were re-merged and eventually disappeared. Then Zhang Yi walked into the furnace and began to treat Zhou Shi's injuries. All of a sudden, the warehouse began to bloom with blue light. About 15 minutes later, the door of the warehouse opened again, and Zhang Yi walked out of it. Go and get your daughter out. After hearing this, Zhou Tian hurriedly ran into the warehouse, and Cui Dongxing beside him also wanted to enter it, but was stopped by Zhang Yi. None of you are allowed to go in. Why? Cui Dongxing also lost his temper, forgetting his fear of facing Zhang Yi before, and directly confronted Zhang Yi. Then you can go in, but you will bear the consequences. Zhang Yi smiled and didn't stop Cui Dongxing. Some people don't cry when they don't see the coffin, and let him suffer a little so that he can listen to what he says. Zhang Yi was no longer blocking them, but the people who originally wanted to go in stopped, looking at Zhang Ye's smiling face, and they didn't dare to enter the warehouse one by one. Humph, a bunch of gall mice, if you don't go in, I'll go in. Seeing that a group of people didn't dare to go in, only lingering at the door of the warehouse, Cui Dongxing stepped directly with his right foot and wanted to walk into the warehouse. However, Cui Dongxing's right foot had just stepped through the warehouse door, and when he hadn't fallen to the ground, he saw a flash of red light, and under the attention of everyone, Cui Dongxing's right foot and calf were separated. Ah! Cui Dongxing's screams echoed in the warehouse, and his whole body began to fall to the ground. Fortunately, Chu Zhongtian was quick and helped Cui Dongxing and pulled him outside the warehouse. Ah! Cui Dongxing's screams did not stop, but became more painful. Zhang Yi walked into the warehouse, kicked Cui Dongxing's severed right foot out of the warehouse, and finally scolded and said bad luck. Guys, is there anyone else you want to get into the warehouse? Zhang Yi continued to smile and said to the exploration team. Everyone shook their heads vigorously. Why are you going into the warehouse? This clearly wants our lives. What do you mean, Mr. Master? After Cui Dongxing handed it over to his subordinates, Chu Zhongtian said to Zhang Yi with a gloomy face. What do you mean? You saw it, I tried to dissuade him, but he didn't listen, and then when he walked into the warehouse, he accidentally triggered the mechanism. What does this matter to me? Zhang Ye's hands were spread out, and his clothes were not afraid of boiling water. Looking at Zhang Ye's indifferent appearance, Chu Zhongtian couldn't help but want to arrest Zhang Yi. He didn't speak again, glared at Zhang Yi fiercely, and then walked away from the crowd. Director Shen, you also saw the arrogant appearance of that sect leader, if you want me to say that it is better to arrest him directly. It turned out that Chu Zhongtian left in order to contact Shen Guoyang above. It's not suitable to turn against that sect leader now. According to the analysis of the technicians, once you have a bad relationship with the sect master in the underground space, it will reach an astonishing 99% last time, and everything will wait for him to come up. This. Alright. After communicating with Shen Guoyang about the next plan, Chu Zhongtian returned to the door of the warehouse with satisfaction. It turned out that Shen Guoyang had never given up arresting Zhang Yi, and letting Chu Zhongtian show friendship with Zhang Yi in Bio village was just because he didn't want to fight in the closed space of the underground space, and doing so could also paralyze Zhang Yi's nerves and make a surprise fatal blow after going out. Back at the door of the warehouse, Chu Zhongtian arranged for his subordinates to take Cui Dongsheng, who was wailing, out for treatment. With modern technology, as long as the treatment is appropriate, Cui Dongsheng's right foot still has hope to be connected. You. What are you doing here? Why am I here again? Dr. Zhao, who was originally in a coma, was awakened by Cui Dongsheng's screams at this time. Dr. Zhao looked around in confusion, wondering why he suddenly appeared in this place from the office. Dr. Zhao, are you awake? The first to notice Dr. Zhao's awakening were the two soldiers who were responsible for his care. Why am I here? Well, Dr. Zhao, you were kidnapped here, but don't worry, you're safe now. Huh? Dr. Zhao's mouth opened wide, and then he remembered a hand knife he had seen in his office earlier. Thank you. Dr. Zhao thanked the two soldiers, which made them bow their heads unconsciously. They are really ashamed of the words thank you. After all, Dr. Zhao was not rescued by them, but was personally sent back by the kidnappers, which is a shame to say. What's going on with that guy? Dr. Zhao pointed to Cui Dongsheng, who was wailing, and asked. That person, it should be a swollen mechanism, and his right foot was directly cut off. One soldier replied. What? Hearing that someone was injured, Dr. Zhao hurriedly got up. But who knew that there was a bounce start, and the whole person jumped more than 2 meters high on the spot. What's wrong with me? Dr. Zhao looked at his hands in confusion. Just now he just used his hands to support the ground, trying to get up, but he jumped 2 meters high. Listening to Cui Dongsheng's screams, Dr. Zhao didn't care about the changes in his body, and quickly ran to Cui Dongsheng's location. At that speed, the 100-meter flyer was ashamed of himself. After coming to Cui Dongsheng's side, Chu Zhongtian also saw Dr. Zhao and was about to ask Dr. Zhao, but was directly interrupted by him. What's going on? How can you explode like this, and the severed foot is connected? If the wound of a severed limb like this is smooth, then it is necessary to put the severed limb on the wound and bandage it as a whole. A bandaging method like Cui Dongsheng's body will only make the right foot with a severed forehead die quickly, and eventually it will be impossible to perform surgery for the amputated limb. Dr. Zhao tried, and began to look around for Cui Dongsheng's severed right foot, and soon, he saw his right foot lying quietly on the ground. Taking Cui Dongsheng's right foot over, Dr. Zhao began to untie the gauze on Cui Dongsheng's right calf. Bear with me, the process of removing the gauze may hurt. As he spoke, Dr. Zhao quickly tore off the gauze that was clinging to the wound. Cui Dongsheng, who had already used the pain, only felt that the pain was doubled, and he couldn't help but wail again. Is there any clear water? Dr. Zhao shouted, and a person next to him hurriedly delivered a bottle of pure water. Dr. Zhao unscrewed the cap of the bottle and poured pure water on Cui Dongsheng's wound to wash away the dirty blood that quickly clumped. Then he used the same method to rinse the wound of the broken right foot, and then he had to put his right foot back on Cui Dongxing's calf, and then bandage it. At this moment, I don't know what happened, Dr. Zhao suddenly had a strange feeling in his heart. There was a force surging in his body, as if the power could heal Cui Dongxing's wound if it was released. Before he knew it, Dr. Zhao stopped his hand and was about to bandage it. Dr. Zhao, Dr. Zhao, Dr. Zhao, what's wrong with you? Seeing that Dr. Zhao was silent, Chu Zhongtian hurriedly asked. But now Dr. Zhao can't hear any sound at all. I saw Dr. Zhao's right hand placed on the seam between Cui Dongxing's calf and right foot, and a magical power poured out of his body and acted on the wound. As Dr. Zhao's strength poured out, Cui Dongxing's wound began to feel itching, and the originally severe pain was reduced a lot. Then, under everyone's ghostly expressions, granulations began to grow from Cui Dongxing's wound, which was connected to the severed right foot. His injuries are recovering at a speed that is visible to the naked eye. This. Everyone, you look at me, I look at you, I don't know what to say to express the shock in my heart. Soon, Cui Dongxing's right foot was completely connected to his calf, and if he didn't look closely, he couldn't even see the scar. At this time, Dr. Zhao collapsed to the ground like mud. As soon as he did the awakening ability, he treated an injury like Cui Dongxing, and he didn't lose his strength, so it's no wonder. Cui Dongxing, who had recovered from the injury, could no longer feel the pain. He tried to move the toes of his right foot, but he did not expect to be able to control it easily, and then tried to stand up, and he stood up straight. I'm all right. I'm really good. Cui Dongxing jumped on the ground excitedly, but he forgot that Dr. Zhao, who treated him, was still slumped on the ground at this time. Is this Dr. Zhao's awakening ability? It was still Chu Zhongtian who had strong eyes, and when he saw Dr. Zhao slumped to the ground, he hurriedly squatted down to help him up, and then asked Zhang Yi. Yes, what he awakens is the ability to heal. After Zhang Yi finished speaking, he didn't pay attention to Dr. Zhao, and closed the door of the warehouse after Zhou Tian took his daughter out. Well, that's the end of it. Captain Chu, I hope you can keep the agreement between us. And you Sunday, your daughter will wake up soon, and there will be no more problems with her body after she wakes up. In the future, you will take Bio Village to guard the bodies of Xian Yi and the villagers of Bio Village, and you can't let outsiders disturb them. Don't worry, Mr. Sect Master, I will definitely keep the agreement. Zhou Tian said to Zhang Yi gratefully. As for Chu Zhongtian, he just nodded and did not speak. After explaining everything, Zhang Yi took out a disc from his arms and threw it on the ground. In an instant, a bundle of enchantments rose into the sky, directly warning that there must be a hole in the dome. Just watch Zhang Yi step into the enchantment, and the whole person floated upward. Everyone, see you in the future. This scene made Chu Zhongtian look stupid. After all calculations, he didn't expect Zhang Yi to leave Bio Village in this way. This also made all his plans for Zhang Yi come to naught. Speaking of Zhang Yi, after he left Bio Village, he took a new look and took a fast train back to Shangjing University. Just when he was treating Zhou Shi, Zhang Yi felt a familiar sleepiness coming. After he forced himself back to the dormitory, he took the substitute puppet and fell asleep on the bed. Zhang Yi's special way of leaving made the well-prepared Shen Guoyang very confused, but he was also the director of the National Security Bureau, and he quickly sorted out his thoughts. Although Zhang Yi had already left Bio Village, this did not mean that Chu Zhongtian and they had nothing to do. They promised Zhang Yi that they would not touch Xuani's corpse and the huge coffin, and they did not say that they could not move the warehouse and the furnace in it. Soon, a large number of state workers came down and began to carry out construction in the underground space. The underground space, which was originally designated as a subway station, has been transformed into a state secret center. And separated some people from the National Security Bureau and established a separate unit called the Special Bureau. The anomalies are only for supernatural forces that appear in the real world. Now there has been a case of supernatural phenomena, and there has also been a family of Inhumans that has been inherited for more than 400 years and a sect leader who has been on fire for more than 400 years, and the country has to take corresponding measures. Hell knows if there will be any other supernatural events to come. So the people in the underground space were divided into 4 parts. Part of it was the archaeologists excavating the bones in the red zone, part of the mechanical experts studying Xiaobai that Zhang Yi did not take away, part of the engineering team building the underground space, and part of the trying to open the warehouse. Colleague, the matter of Bio Village has also been fermented on the internet, and it has become almost everyone's knowledge. However, not everyone believes in the authenticity of this matter, and most of them remain skeptical. After all, modern society is dominated by science, and it is really hard to believe that something suddenly appears that science cannot explain. However, this does not affect the popularity of Bio Village. Many teenagers began to clamoring to find strangers and find spiritual exercises. Because Bio Village has been controlled by the state, they can't enter it, so they start digging pits all over the world, trying to dig a second underground space. However, manpower is limited after all, and those teenagers are not a construction team, nor do they have excavators, so almost all of them dig a small pit about 1 meter deep and give up. Just when they gave up, I don't know who sent such a message on the internet. In ancient times, the masters lived in seclusion in the mountains and forests, close to nature, and believed that there would be strangers in some deep mountains or in the long-inherited Taoist halls. After seeing this information, the tourism industry in the Dragon Kingdom began to develop rapidly, and many teenagers began to travel around, going to the deep mountains and forests or in the temples and temples, wanting to find their own opportunities, and since then they have soared to the sky. All of a sudden, major temples and tourist attractions with hills made a lot of money. Similarly, taking advantage of the popularity of Bio Village, there is a new type of profession that is on fire. That's the Inhuman anti-counterfeiter. These anti-counterfeiters mainly start live broadcasts, go to various temples and Taoist temples, and then indiscriminately scold these Taoist temples on the grounds of superstition, so as to gain popularity. I have to say that some modern internet celebrities are really doing everything to make money for the sake of fire. Of course, Zhang Yi didn't know anything about these. Now he is lying on the bed in the dormitory and falling asleep. If the students in the same dormitory hadn't heard Zhang Yi's breathing, they would have thought that the goods had been hung. In the dream, Zhang Yi began the reincarnation of a lifetime again. In the 3rd year of Jiajing in the Ming dynasty, Jiajing Emperor Zhu Hoshi was obsessed with monasticism, and gradually began to ignore the government, and in the same year, the 11th son of Jiajing Emperor was born, named Zhu Tianxi. When Zhu Tianxi was born, he had a vision across the sky, and purple qi came from the east, and Emperor Jiajing believed that God felt his sincerity in cultivating his way, and he gave a special gift to the child, and he was very fond of Zhu Tianxi. After Zhu Tianxi was born, he didn't cry or make trouble, he would only look around curiously with his eyes wide open, and he was once considered a mute. In the following years, Zhu Tianxi showed a difference from ordinary people. By the time a normal child is 4 or 5 years old, he can speak fluently and play all over the world. But Zhu Tianxi is different, he will only squat in the corner alone every day, looking at an ant or looking at a leaf, and then say something that ordinary people can't understand. Therefore, rumors began to spread from the palace that the 11th prince was a fool. Emperor Jiajing was angry about this, but what made him angry was not the person who said that Zhu Tianxi was a fool, but Zhu Tianxi and his mother. It was because Zhu Tianxi was a fool that Emperor Jiajing was persuaded by some ministers in the court to give up cultivation. You see that you are obsessed with monasticism, ignoring the government and politics, not caring about the people's livelihood, and your son was a fool when the world changed when he was born. This is a warning from God to you. So, in order to curb this statement, Emperor Jiajing sent Zhu Tianxi and his mother into the cold palace with a will. However, what everyone doesn't know is that Zhu Tianxi is not stupid, but was born with a 7-trick exquisite heart, and everything he sees can understand the principle of the formation of this thing at the first time. He squatted alone in the corner and recited words, but he was only analyzing the principles of what he observed. However, human beings are ignorant and are alien to things they don't understand. In this way, Zhu Tianxi was 10 years old, and he also lived in a cold palace for 6 years, and when he was 8 years old, his mother died of depression in the cold palace. At that time, Zhu Tianxi didn't cry, not even sad, and a message began to circulate in the palace again. That is, Zhu Tianxi is not only a fool, but also a hard-hearted person. When his mother, who had taken care of him for 8 years, died, even a fool would cry, but looking at Zhu Tianxi again, when his mother was buried, he just watched coldly. Sometimes, it's not a good thing to have too much enlightenment. Just like Zhu Tianxi, when his mother died, what he saw was the reincarnation of heaven in which a person died, not the death of a loved one. Just as rumors in the palace said, Zhu Tianxi really has no feelings. In Zhu Tianxi's eyes, there are thousands of situations in the world, but only love words are the most difficult to understand. Of course, this love is not only love, but also family affection, friendship, or human joys, sorrows, and sorrows. In this way, Zhu Tianxi lived to be 18 years old. In the 21st year of Jiajing, a major event occurred in the palace. Jiajing Emperor Zhu Hoshi almost died at the hands of the palace maid, which is the famous Ren'in Palace change in history. It was because of this incident that Zhu Tianxi walked out of the cold palace, met his father Emperor Jiajing, and began to contact the Taoist scriptures and discovered the truth of this world. After the Ren'in Palace change, Emperor Jiajing, who lived for the rest of his life, was furious, and all the palace maids involved were executed by Ling Qi, and concubine Chao Duan and concubine Wang Ning, who participated in the rebellion, were also beheaded. Afterwards, Emperor Jiajing became even more obsessed with monasticism, and was bewitched by the Wei, and began to build a monastery with great effort and money, hoping to move the heavens and become immortals. Because the construction of the monastery required a lot of manpower, the people who were originally in the cold palace were also arranged to participate in the construction, and Zhu Tianxi, who was the 11th prince, was no exception and became a construction worker. This year, Emperor Jiajing did not care about the government, and the crown prince supervised the country, and he ran to the monastery under construction in addition to cultivating. It was in this year that Zhu Tianxi met his biological father and also saw intelligent beings other than humans. Every time Emperor Jiajing came to watch the progress of the construction of the monastery, he would bring a warlock with him. When Zhu Tianxi saw this warlock for the first time, he found that he was not a human at all, but a centipede dressed in human skin. Although he discovered this secret, Zhu Tianxi did not say it. In his eyes, centipedes in human skin, ordinary people, are all living beings living in this world. There is nothing to be afraid of, and there is no special place for attention. Zhu Tianxi still worked with the construction workers, and Emperor Jiajing did not find that there were still his own flesh and blood among these workers. The monastery to be built by Emperor Jiajing covers a total area of 9,999,990,0000 acres, symbolizing the meaning of the 95 dynasty. The entire monastery was built according to the legendary heavenly court, and it took 3 years to complete the labor casualties. After the construction of the monastery, a large number of books on monasticism were transported and lifted, and Zhu Tianxi was one of the people who transported the Taoist scriptures. For the first time in his life, he saw a book about monasticism, and Zhu Tianxi would read it fascinated when no one was around. It wasn't until the last book on monasticism was read that the monastery was relocated. At this time, Emperor Jiajing was bewitched by the warlocks around him and ordered the execution of all workers involved in the construction of the monastery. It is also said that the monastery should not be defiled by mortals, and the execution of these workers involved in the construction is actually to let them ascend to the Tao. On this day, Emperor Jiajing handed over the task of executing all the workers to the wandering warlocks around him. The warlock gathered all the workers in the center of the monastery on the pretext of paying their wages. This is also the core location of the dragon vein of the Ming dynasty. The reason why the warlock tricked Emperor Jiajing into building the monastery was for the dragon vein here. Although the entire monastery was built according to the legendary heavenly court, in fact, there was a hidden formation that trapped the dragon veins, and with the blood sacrifice of tens of thousands of workers, he could absorb the dragon veins, so as to cross the dragon gate and become a dragon. The rejoicing workers fantasize that they will be able to go home when they get the money, but they don't know that the real danger is already on their side. In the central hall of the monastery, the warlock looked at tens of thousands of workers and directly turned into the main body, and suddenly a centipede more than 40 meters long hovered above everyone's heads. Where have these people seen such a battle? One by one they are so frightened that they are crying for their fathers and mothers. Only Zhu Tianxi stood in the crowd unmoved. After reading all the monastic books and understanding all the Taoist true understandings, although he did not practice at this time and did not have true qi in his body, his perception had reached the realm of communicating heaven and earth, and Taoist magic could also use the aura of heaven and earth to come easily. What's more, this is the very center of the dragon vein, and the aura is so thick that the outside world can't compare with it at all, which also makes Zhu Tianxi's Taoist magic power to a higher level. When the warlock was hunting the workers, he also noticed Zhu Tianxi. When everyone fled in panic, Zhu Tianxi, who was standing motionless in place, was particularly conspicuous. "Are you too scared to move?" The giant centipede smiled and said, "Then I'll let you go." As he spoke, the centipede Zhang Kai took a big mouth and wanted to swallow Zhu Tianxi. Zhu Tianxi naturally would not be captured, so the war began. Although Zhu Tianxi's realm is high, he has no practice, and his physical body is weak, so he can only rely on communicating heaven and earth to cast Taoist spells. Soon, Zhu Tianxi noticed his abnormality. He felt that his mental power was gradually weakening, his eyelids were getting heavier and heavier, and he looked like he wanted to fall asleep. Fortunately, at this time, the huge centipede was also beaten all over by Zhu Tianxi's spell, and it was dying. Just when Zhu Tianxi's spiritual power was exhausted and he was about to fall unconscious, the huge centipede made a final counterattack before dying, and a swinging tail hit Zhu Tianxi. How could Zhu Tianxi's uncultivated body withstand such an attack? And he suddenly vomited blood and fainted. When he woke up again, Zhu Tianxi had already left the monastery and was in a farmer's house. His injuries were so severe that he could only lie in bed and could not move. According to the village doctor, Zhu Tianxi's life was great, and when the workers carried him to the village, Zhu Tianxi's internal organs had been shattered by the centipede's death-defying blow. Zhu Tianxi wanted to thank the doctor but was refused. According to the doctor's words, he didn't help at all. When Zhu Tianxi was sent to the doctor couldn't do anything about his injury, so he could only let Zhu Tianxi wait for death. Just when everyone was about to give up, Zhu Tianxi's breath gradually became stronger, and the originally ruptured internal organs gradually healed. So it wasn't the doctor who saved Zhu Tianxi, but he saved himself. Zhu Tianxi, who was lying on the bed, also learned from the workers what happened after he fell into a coma. After the giant centipede was killed by Zhu Tianxi, the workers began to rush outside the monastery, during which they encountered a large number of officers and soldiers to stop them. In the end, only a small number of people rushed out, among them, Zhu Tianxi, everyone's life-saving benefactor, was hugged and rushed out. Soon, Zhu Tianxi was able to get out of bed, and he was very curious when he saw the scene outside the palace for the first time, but he also discovered something. Since the last time he communicated with heaven and earth, his spiritual power has been exhausted, and his previous ability to see through the essence of things at a glance has also disappeared, and his whole head is no longer as clear as before, and he can turn anything into truth. Now he is in a daze, his head is full of all kinds of distractions. This is an unprecedented experience, although it makes people feel irritated, but it is inexplicably steady. In this way, Zhu Tianxi began to live in this nameless small village. During this period, he also wanted to try to communicate with the world and use spells, but in exchange for a sharp pain in his head, he also gave up the idea of using Taoist spells. In the 25th year of Jiajing, because the centipede warlock could never be found, Emperor Jiajing became even more violent. Since the workers rushed out of the monastery, Emperor Jiajing only found a huge centipede corpse, not knowing that this centipede was the warlock he was looking for. But none of this has anything to do with Zhu Tianxi. In order to survive, Zhu Tianxi became a teacher in the village. Although the ability to see through the essence of things at a glance is gone, there is still knowledge that I have learned before, and this knowledge is more than enough to become a teacher in the village. In the 26th year of Jiajing, Zhu Tianxi lived with the villagers for a year. During this year, he no longer looked at things rationally as always, but received the emotions of the world with a sensual attitude. This year, for the first time in his life, Zhu Tianxi felt happy, uncomfortable, and felt the emotions that human beings have. Time flies, and Mr. Zhu Tianxi has been teaching in this nameless village for 3 years. In 3 years, he met a girl from the next village, and from acquaintance to love and then to wedding. The 11th prince who did not eat the fireworks of the world at the beginning no longer exists. Until one day, Zhu Tianxi still went to the study hall to teach at the usual time, and his wife went to the town to buy some cotton cloth to make 2 winter clothes for Zhu Tianxi. In the evening, Zhu Tianxi returned home, but he never saw his wife come home, and he was suddenly very worried, so he went to the town to find his wife. After several days of searching, his wife seemed to have disappeared, and there was never a clue. 7 days later, the official messenger found Zhu Tianxi and asked him to go to the yamen to collect the body. Suddenly, an ominous premonition enveloped Zhu Tianxi's heart. In this world, there are only 2 people who can let him collect the body. One is his cheap father Jiaqing Emperor Zhu Hoshi. This is obviously impossible, not to mention that no one knows his identity. Even if he knows, the emperor died, it is impossible to let him collect the body. Then the last one could be his wife. After looking for 7 days and 7 nights, he never found his wife, and Zhu Tianxi had already prepared for the worst when he went to the yamen this time. When he came to the yamen of the county, Zhu Tianxi saw a corpse wrapped in a straw mat, opened the straw mat with trembling hands, and a familiar face appeared in his eyes. This is his wife. This time, Zhu Tianxi still did not shed tears, and after signing and postponing the painting, Zhu Tianxi picked up his sleeping wife and walked home step by step. In this life, the 2 women who accompanied Zhu Tianxi passed away one after another. When his mother died for the first time, he was indifferent, because he knew that death was the best ending for his mother compared to being in the cold palace. This time his wife's death, Zhu Tianxi still didn't cry. It was because of his grief, which could no longer be expressed with tears. Walking on the road to the village with his wife in his arms, many villagers already knew about this incident and stepped forward to comfort them, but Zhu Tianxi refused. In this way, as the sun set, Zhu Tianxi walked on the field road with his dead wife in his arms. Back at home, Zhu Tianxi put his wife on the bed and closed the door. He sat on the edge of the bed, holding his wife's white and stiff right hand, and just like that, he sat for a night. When the yamen signed and drew the detainment, Zhu Tianxi saw very clearly that his wife's body was found on a street in the town, and the cause of death was that the internal organs were disemboweled, and as for the murderer, the yamen did not say much, but said that it was to be investigated. There are many doubts in this, and in his wife's body, Zhu Tianxi feels a trace of familiarity, which has the same root as the giant centipede he killed 3 years ago. Is it a yukai? Watching the sun rise, Zhu Tianxi muttered. Whatever the reason, he must have an explanation for his wife's death. After burying his wife, Zhu Tianxi began an investigation into the cause of his wife's death. The survey took 3 months. In the past 3 months, since the death of his wife, women who have died in the same way have begun to appear in nearby towns. It was as if the death of Zhu Tianxi's wife was a Pandora's box, which could not be terminated once opened. At first, the frequency of women dying was not too high, about 1 every 10 days, then 1 a week, then 6 days, 5 days, and now it has become 1 a day. This incident caused panic, but the government was never able to give an answer. After Zhu Tianxi's investigation, the women who were killed all had one characteristic, that is, they were pregnant. And his wife was indeed pregnant, but she didn't tell herself that her wife went to the town that day not only to fill in a few winter clothes for Zhu Tianxi, but also to confirm whether she was pregnant, and then give Zhu Tianxi a surprise. On the night he learned the news, Zhu Tianxi drank wine on the roof like a madman, and scolded the thief for a whole night. Early the next morning, snowflakes began to fall in the sky. Zhu Tianxi staggered to the gate of the palace, and after being stopped by the guards, he took out the jade plate on his body that he had brought from birth to the present. When the guards saw this, they hurried to the palace. The jade plate that Zhu Tianxi took out is a symbol of his identity, and it is the 11th son of the current emperor, Zhu Tianxi. And he came to the palace for only one purpose, that is, to find out the cause of his wife's death. According to his investigation these days, his wife's death has a great connection with the palace. Soon, the guards returned again and brought Zhu Tianxi to Emperor Jiajing. "Are you a godsend?" I don't know why. Zhu Tianxi looked at the father in front of him with disgust. His body exuded a disgusting demonic aura all the time. "Why didn't you come back after all these years? Is it necessary to come back? So what are you doing now?" "Looking for an answer." "What's the answer? Have you seen this person?" Zhu Tianxi was holding a picture scroll in his hand, and after spreading it out, it was a portrait of his wife. "This person is a little familiar. Ha, I remember, this woman is my first medicine lead. No, it should be said that it is the child in her womb." Suddenly, Emperor Jiajing thought of who the woman in the painting was. "What are you looking for her for?" "No, I'm not looking for her now, because I've found my purpose." "Oh, what do you mean?" Zhu Tianxi did not answer, but pulled out the hairpin on his head and stabbed it directly like Emperor Jiajing. It's a pity that Zhu Tianxi doesn't have any cultivation now, so how can he be the opponent of Emperor Jiajing, who has begun to cultivate evil skills? The moment he arrived at Emperor Jiajing's side, he was subdued. "Why did you assassinate me?" Emperor Jiajing directly said that Zhu Tianxi was on the ground, and asked angrily. "Avenge Chon'er, avenge my unborn child, and avenge your grandson." "What?" Emperor Jiajing was stunned for a moment, and finally laughed. "It turns out that that woman is your wife. No wonder the national teacher said that the fetus was related to me by blood, and it was best to use him as a medicine. Wooer, you have made a great achievement." Emperor Jiajing said with a laugh, as if apart from himself, human life was not worth mentioning in his eyes. "You're not a cultivator, you're already in the devil." Zhu Tianxi roared angrily and got up again to assassinate Emperor Jiajing. Who knew that as soon as he got up, he was thrown away by Emperor Jiajing's arm and slammed into the ground again. Ha, I know I'm in the devil, but so what? The Tao sect doesn't accept me as a disciple. If I can't cultivate the Tao, then I will cultivate demons. As long as I can live forever, nothing else matters. Emperor Jiajing roared like a madman. "Immortality, how can a person like you live forever?" Zhu Tianxi got up and attacked Emperor Jiajing again. He knew that he was not Emperor Jiajing's opponent, and no matter how much he attacked, he would not cause harm to Emperor Jiajing. Even so, until there was no result, Zhu Tianxi still did it. Bang! Zhu Tianxi flew out upside down again. This time, Zhu Tianxi couldn't even use the strength to stand up. In the end, Zhu Tianxi was charged with assassinating the emperor and publicly beheaded outside the palace. With an order on the execution ground, Zhu Tianxi's body was in a different place. However, just after Zhu Tianxi died, the heavens and the earth changed greatly. Snowflakes danced around Zhu Tianxi's body, and a whirlwind dragged Zhu Tianxi and his head up, and finally flew out of the capital and landed on a field. Is it just like that? Zhu Tianxi, who had already had his head cut off, stood up slowly at this time. It turned out that after fighting with that centipede 3 years ago, Zhu Tianxi planted a turnaround talisman on himself, which worked even after he was killed and resurrected once in a full state. Of course, this kind of anti-heaven talisman is not without restrictions on its use. If a person dies of natural old age, this talisman will not work. Another limitation is that a person can only use the fortune reversal charm once in his or her lifetime. Because it is a full state of resurrection, the current Zhu Tianxi has once again returned to the state he was in 3 years ago, regaining the ability to see through all the essence of the world, and in the same way, Zhu Tianxi is once again able to communicate with heaven and earth and use spells. Glancing at the direction of the capital, Zhu Tianxi turned his back to the capital without looking back, and left into the distance. He knew that with his current strength, he would not be able to kill Emperor Jiajing and the monster national teacher beside him. Next, Zhu Tianxi wandered in the world for 8 years. For 8 years, he traveled through mountains, rivers, lakes and seas during the day, and practiced Taoism at night. Finally, one day, he met a person who also cultivated the Tao Fa, and also learned the truth that ordinary people in this world did not know. It turns out that this world is a world of demons and demons standing side by side, but the environment of the demon world is extremely poor, so some monsters want to go to the world. At that time, the cultivators of the human realm and the demon realm reached an agreement that the monsters of the demon realm could go to the human realm, but they were not allowed to expose their true bodies and attack mortals for no reason. In this way, she-males have coexisted for hundreds of years. Until one day, a yokai discovered that the flesh and blood of some special people can quickly increase demonic power, and a disaster broke out. A large number of mortals were hunted and killed by yokai, and although they were discovered and subdued by the cultivators in time, there was a precedent for the yokai to attack humans a second time, and then a third or fourth time. As a result, the cultivators of the human world no longer allowed yokai to go to the human world, and over time, the friction between the two sides gradually expanded, and finally the Great War broke out. The battle lasted until 200 years ago, when a ruthless man Lu Bowen appeared. He gathered almost all the cultivators in the human world, and worked together to cut off the dragon veins that link the two worlds of human and demon, completely closing the passage of the two worlds. In this way, although the yokai could not go to the human world, at that time, he gathered a large number of cultivators to complete the creation of slaying the dragon vein, causing a large number of cultivators to fall, and many sects lost their inheritance and disappeared. This is also the reason why there are so few cultivators nowadays, and there are no powerful people. The power of the human cultivation world is gradually declining, but the dragon veins that were originally cut off are gradually recovering, which is the reason why monsters have appeared in the world in recent years. In the 10th year of Zhu Tianxi's travel in the world, he once again came to the capital and came to the palace. At this time, the entire Ming dynasty was in a miasma, the people were struggling to make a living, and the originally lively and prosperous capital has now become sparsely populated. In order to live forever, Emperor Jiajing used a large number of unborn baby embryos, and the death of countless women made the entire capital begin to flee outward. Unable to find a pregnant woman in the capital, Emperor Jiajing began to order people to look for it elsewhere. Not only that, but also because of the repair of the dragon vein, many monsters came to break through the defense line of cultivators and come to the world. When he came to the palace, Zhu Tianxi killed Emperor Jiajing and the national teacher who bewitched him, and then left the palace again. For a time, the Ming dynasty was leaderless and became even more chaotic. When Zhu Tianxi reappeared, he had already come to his wife's grave. Although Zhu Tianxi has become the person who sees through the essence of things at a glance, the emotions he experiences are all real feelings, and he can analyze everything in the world but cannot turn emotions into truth. After the death of Emperor Jiajing, Emperor Longqing ascended the throne. Zhu Tianxi killed all the monsters in the world, but during this period, he met a white tiger cub. Because the white tiger cub did not harm humans, so Zhu Tianxi's subordinates showed mercy and took it with him to the dragon vein that linked the two worlds of human and demon. He will personally guard the passage and not allow any monsters to go to the human world again. He knew that the reason why Emperor Jiajing fell into the devil and why his wife died was inseparable from the monster, and he didn't want anyone in the world to suffer the same thing as himself. This is 80 years. In these 80 years, not a single monster has been able to cross Zhu Tianxi to the human world. Even if the 4 demon kings of the demon world arrived, they were all seriously injured in the end. At this time, Zhu Tianxi was already 114 years old. Although cultivators live longer than ordinary people, at best it is 150 years, and even if Zhu Tianxi cultivates to a high level, he can only live for about 200 years. Zhu Tianxi knew that once he died, with the power of the human cultivation realm, he would not be able to stop the invasion of the demon realm at all. Although he could cut off the dragon vein again like Lu Bowen. No, with his own strength alone, he can break the dragon more completely, and then use himself to block the dragon vein to repair, which may be able to organize the healing of the dragon vein forever and organize the people of the demon world to come to the world. But when he did that, it meant his own death. He is not afraid of death, but after a few years of death, in case the dragon vein heals and the demon world invades, he is afraid that no one in the human cultivation world will be able to stop him. As a result, Zhu Tianxi spread the news that he wanted to create a sect at the intersection of the 2 worlds of demons and recruit disciples. Hearing that the heavenly master who was sitting at the exit of the demon realm had accepted disciples, in an instant, a large number of cultivators came to the place where Zhu Tianxi was. Heavenly Master is the honorific title given to Zhu Tianxi by the human cultivation world. In this way, on the dragon vein at the intersection of the 2 worlds of demons, a sect was established. Zhu Tianxi accepted 7 personal disciples and taught them the magical powers and spells he had comprehended in his life. In this way, another 80 years passed, and Zhu Tianxi, who was already 194 years old, felt that his limit was approaching, so he brazenly took action, completely cut off the dragon vein that connected the 2 worlds of human and demon, and sat down in the place where the dragon vein was broken, and used his body to prevent the dragon vein from being connected again. And the disciples of the heavenly master's mansion that he created were statues incarnated by the caretaker Zhu Tianxi from generation to generation to prevent the exit of the demon world from reappearing. In the dormitory of Shanghai Beijing University, a group of students were discussing something around Zhang Yi. Do you think Zhang Yi won't have an accident, right? I've slept for 3 days and 3 nights. Harm. What can happen? Breathing steadily, his complexion is normal, his body temperature is normal, maybe he has been drowsy again. I've seen someone who can sleep, but I've never seen someone who can sleep like this. If you don't eat or drink for 3 days, if you are a normal person, something would have happened a long time ago, right? What you said, isn't Zhang Yi a normal person? Can a normal person sleep for 3 days and 3 nights? Well, that's what I said. Why don't we call the school doctor to come and show Zhang Yi? Come on, yesterday when you were not there, I didn't feel at ease and called the school doctor to come over, but the school doctor checked me and told me that I called him over to see a sleeping student. Isn't it delaying his time? Alas, I don't know when Zhang Yi will wake up. Just as these students wanted to leave, they only heard Zhang Yi on the bed groan, stretched and sat up. I'll go, Zhang Yi, you're finally awake. Zhang Yi, is there anything uncomfortable? Seeing Zhang Yi wake up, the roommates who originally wanted to leave surrounded him again. It's okay, how long have I been asleep? You have slept for 3 days and 3 nights, Zhang Yi, your drowsiness is serious again. The roommate looked at Zhang Yi worriedly and said. It's okay, I know my own body. Zhang Yi touched the back of his head, and now his mind was full of what was happening in his dreams. We're going to class first, if you have anything, just contact us. Zhang Ye's roommate said, and then left the dormitory. As a result, Zhang Yi was the only one left in the entire dormitory. Lying on the bed with nothing to do, Zhang Yi began to sort out the dream this time. Unlike the last time, this time the dream turned out to be last night, and if it was the last time, it would have been done intermittently for several days. But when I think about it, the last time I dreamed, I didn't cultivate, so every time I reached the limit of my body, I would wake up and replenish my body with nutrients. If you think about it, the last time I dreamed, every time I woke up, I was listless and hungry. The reason why I can finish my dream for 3 days and 3 nights at one time should be because I have cultivated my magic skills and practiced 100 things, and not eating or drinking for 3 days will not affect my body. But this dream shouldn't come true, right? After all, the demon world is too mysterious, how can it appear in the real world? Thinking of this, Zhang Yi tried to communicate the aura between heaven and earth to release Taoist spells. Sure enough, as Zhang Yi pinched the spell, nothing happened, and his spell failed. Sure enough, your dream this time won't come true. That's fine, after all, the demon world in the dream is too dangerous, and if it really appears in the real world, I'm afraid it will cause immeasurable disasters to the real world. Zhang Yi thought in his heart and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. The Taoist technique in the dream is indeed very attractive, but compared to the harm brought by the demon world, Zhang Yi instantly felt that the Taoist technique was not fragrant. After getting up and washing, Zhang Yi walked out of the dormitory and came to the cafeteria. Although he only slept for 3 days and 3 nights, what happened in the dream was extremely real. Zhang Yi felt like he had not eaten a modern meal for more than 190 years, and he felt that the whole person had faded out of a bird. Walking into the cafeteria, it was already class time, and there were only a few scattered students who did not have classes eating. After seeing Zhang Yi, they instantly came to their senses, pointing at Zhang Yi, and saying something like, "It's him, it's him." Although it was strange, Zhang Yi didn't ask much, ordered a flour noodle, took a small spoon and began to eat it in a big gulp. This is Zhang Yi's favorite. It's not expensive, for yuan a bowl, and you can still eat enough. I think that when Zhang Yi's living expenses were only 100 yuan a month, he relied on this bowl of noodles to get through the difficulties. Eating noodles, the students in the cafeteria looked at Zhang Yi from time to time, and some didn't even know that their chopsticks had fallen to the ground. After eating the flour noodles quickly, Zhang Yi came to a good-looking schoolgirl and sat down. "Beauty, you are looking at me, do you have flowers on my face?" "Ha!" The junior girl realized that she was out of shape, lowered her head shyly, and then raised her head again and said, "That, Senior Zhang Yi, you are now a celebrity of our Beijing University, and even Professor Yuan has publicly apologized to you on the school website." "What? What does that mean? How did I become a celebrity at school?" "It's because of the question you answered Professor Yuan earlier, Senior. Before Bio Village appeared, you could have known the real history in advance, Senior. Do you say you can't be famous? Plus Professor Yuan, a veteran professor, publicly apologized to you. Now I'm afraid even the school's cleaners know about you." Is that so?" "Ha ha ha, I was lucky enough to hear from others, and when I was in a daze that day, I told this story as the answer." Zhang Yi laughed dryly. If he knew that the things in his dream would become a reality, he would not have said Bio Village if he was killed. "Hee, Senior, what else do you know? Tell me about it." The elementary school girl seemed to be interested and wanted Zhang Yi to tell him the story of Bio Village. "Well, that's all I know, and I don't know anything more." "Oh." The elementary school girl said happily. But Random Eyes lit up and said, "Senior, I heard rumors from the school that you slept for 3 days and 3 nights, is it true?" "Well, how do you know about this?" Zhang Yi was a little puzzled. How long had he just woken up, and any elementary school girl in the school knew that I had slept for 3 days and 3 nights. "No, there was a post from a senior on the school forum just now." The elementary school girl said that the mobile phone was placed in front of Zhang Yi, and Zhang Yi stretched out his finger and slid it on the screen. "My roommate has slept for a day and a night. My roommate has been sleeping for 30 hours. My roommate has been sleeping for 40 hours. My roommate has slept for 3 days and 3 nights. The roommate has woken up." The last post was posted 10 minutes ago, and it also had this photo of Yi just waking up when he was sleeping. Sun Xingxing, I'll go to your uncle. Zhang Ye's serious anger is burning, and the author of the post is very familiar to him. It is his upper bunk roommate Sun Xingxing. Zhang Yi knew that he was on fire, almost the kind of fire that everyone in the school knew. It was all thanks to the bad friend in the dormitory, but he wouldn't say anything. In the entire Beijing University, Sun Xingxing can be regarded as his friend. After talking to the elementary school girl for a while, Zhang Yi casually found a reason and left the restaurant. After returning to the dormitory, I opened my hand and walked around the school forum, and found that several popular posts were related to me. At the top of the list is the video of Professor Yuan apologizing to himself. The second is the post posted by Sun Xingxing that he slept for 3 days and 3 nights. The third is about Bo Village, about the analysis of aliens. After reading a few pages, Zhang Yi felt bored, so he began to browse the news on the web. The next thing that came after was the news about Bo Village. Then there is the news of the furnace. The most unexpected thing for Zhang Yi was that Longdong University of Science and Technology ranked third on the hot search list. However, this hot spot is not a good phenomenon, and Longdong University of Science and Technology was scolded by netizens on the hot search. Zhang Yi took a look, and the official post bar of Longdong University of Science and Technology was all abusive posts, and it was this popularity that caused the post bar of Longdong University of Science and Technology to be targeted by the film seller. In those abusive posts, there are also some advertisements for selling films from time to time. Aren't schools reflecting on it? Don't want to think about why their official post bar is being targeted by film sellers? Today I took the headphones to the cafeteria to eat, and when I went to buy food, I was always afraid that the headphones would be taken away, but fortunately, our school did not use headphones to protect the research. Stealing is a criminal offense, but if it's a little fairy, then you can protect the research. I stole the headphones and slipped away. Can I protect the research? Students steal headphones to protect research. Professors steal state secrets to ask for ugly national green cards. Is this Longdong Thief Academy? This wave of infiltration of the academy is really showing. My scalp is numb. There are countless posts like this. Zhang Yi is very normal in this regard. There were female students at Longdong University of Technology who stole things to protect the research, and then there were school professors who leaked state secrets. Sure enough, Zhang Yi soon saw a news, which was officially released by the state, which meant that a special investigation team had been sent to Longdong University of Technology to investigate. Of course, these are not what Zhang Yi cares about. What he is most concerned about is how Bo Village is doing. After looking for news about Bo Village, Zhang Yi couldn't help frowning. The official of the Dragon Kingdom actually built a military base in the underground space, and named it the Special Bureau. This is what Zhang Yi doesn't want to see, so he will be in trouble when he wants to go to Bo Village in the future. But this is also the fact that there is no way, so that he can't be on an equal footing with the official now. Before being able to negotiate with Chu Zhongtian in Bo Village, the main reason was that the country wanted to win itself over. If the country really wanted to clean itself up, I am afraid that he would have died long ago and there would be no scum left. According to a classic line on the internet, the ashes are all raised for you. In the following days, Zhang Yi began to attend classes normally and practiced the magic machine normally. This life lasted for a month, until the Spring Festival was approaching, and the students of Shanghai Beijing University began their holiday life. Watching his classmates leave the campus one after another, Zhang Yi sighed and began to pack his luggage and prepare to leave. During the winter vacation, the school did not supply electricity and water, and Zhang Yi could not live if he wanted to stay in the college, so he had to leave. For going home, Zhang Yi is both thinking and afraid. I think it's because I haven't been home for nearly half a year, and I miss my parents very much. As for being afraid, Zhang Yi shuddered at the thought of the matchmaker running home every once in a while. Sighing again, Zhang Yi took out his mobile phone and booked a ticket home. After nearly 7 hours of turbulence, Zhang Yi finally returned to this small town that grew from a small to a large one. Zhang Ye's hometown is in the northwest of northern Hubei province, next to the famous nature reserve Shenlangjia in the Dragon Country. Like walking on the road of a small town, Zhang Yi took a sharp breath. Because the town is close to Shenlangjia and has a developed tourism industry, the villagers in the town have basically reached the level of being well off. It is also under the influence of the Shenlong frame that the villagers in the town generally love the environment and respect the environment, so compared with the outside, the aura here is stronger. Mom and Dad, I'm back. Zhang Yi pushed open the door and shouted. It didn't take long to see a middle-aged man walk out. He looked at Zhang Yi with an unkind face, and then scolded angrily, "Little rabbit, do you dare to come back?" I saw Zhang's father casually pick up a rolling pin with the thickness of a baby's arm, and walked towards Zhang Yi with a momentum. "I'll go, Dad, are you really here?" Seeing this, Zhang Yi hurriedly stepped back. In fact, now he, not to mention that Zhang's father uses a rolling pin, even if he uses a steel whip, he doesn't want to leave a wound on Zhang Yi's body. But after all, the thing that came towards him was his own father, and the suppression from the blood still made Zhang Yi choose to run away. "Help, murder my own son." Zhang Yi ran and shouted. He knew his father's temperament. As long as he shouted loudly to attract the onlookers of the neighbors, the good-looking father would definitely stop there. "I want to be a top student at Beijing University, and I can't deal with my father." With Zhang Yi's shouting, the surrounding neighbors began to go out, but they were pulled back to the room before they could get out of the house. "What are you doing? I seem to hear Onoko's cry for help just now." "I know, this is Lao Zhang teaching Xiao Yezi." During this time we often heard Lao Zhang nagging, saying that Xiao Yezi will definitely educate him well when he comes back. "Why is this? Xiao Noko finally came back once, why did he educate him as soon as he got home? It's not the blind date that Onoko went on before." "Oh, that's it. I see." Almost all of the neighbors did the same, locking their doors and keeping them closed. Zhang Yi, who came out of the house, was dumbfounded. In the past, when his father chased after him, as long as he shouted out, the surrounding neighbors would come out to persuade him, but today these neighbors closed the door like thieves. "Little rabbit, I see how you are going to escape today." Dad Zhang laughed, and finally pulled back a game today. "Old Dad, if you have something to say it well." Zhang Yi stopped, and said with a sincere look, "Dad, I know it's wrong, I shouldn't pretend to be crazy and stupid on a blind date, and I shouldn't let you lose face. I apologize, I sincerely apologize." "Apologize? Do you know who that girl is?" "That's the daughter of an old comrade in arms. Do you know how that girl described you when she went back? You made me lose face in front of my old comrades." The more Dad Zhang thought about it, the more angry he became, and he waved the rolling pin in his hand and fell at Zhang Yi. "Wait, Dad, I'll be completely at your disposal this winter vacation, I'll be honest on a blind date." Zhang Yi hurriedly shouted out this sentence. There is no way, not doing this will not be able to eliminate the anger in his father's heart at all. Half a year's work is indeed wrong for me. Since he was admitted to university, his parents' attitude towards him has taken a 180-degree turn. Originally, it was stipulated that Zhang Yi would not be allowed to fall in love, but he suddenly began to nervous about Zhang Yi's marriage. Whenever Zhang Yi was at home, they began to contact no one and wanted to find a daughter-in-law. Zhang Yi understood what his parents meant. It was nothing more than that he was afraid that he would fall in love outside and not come back. But Zhang Yi really didn't have the idea of falling in love and getting married, so every time he went on a blind date, he would shirk it for various reasons. Until the last time, the object of belief was the daughter of my father's comrade in arms, and this time he couldn't escape, so he pretended to be crazy and stupid to damage his image in the hearts of blind date girls. It was really because of this that Zhang's father was furious when he found out, and he almost got into trouble with Zhang Yi, but in the end, it was the neighbor who stopped him, and Zhang Yi also directly pulled the suitcase back to school. It is precisely because of this that Zhang Yi did not get any living expenses that month, and only lived on the university campus for a month with only 100 yuan. Really? After hearing Zhang Ye's words, the anger on Zhang's father's face was really much smaller. Really? Really? Zhang Yi took a breath and said, he knew that he might not have a good time in the next days. Dad Zhang heard Zhang Ye's answer, and immediately put away the rolling pin in his hand. Let's go home, I'm still embarrassed here. Dad Zhang said angrily, and then turned around and walked into the house. Seeing this, Zhang Yi followed Zhang's father back home. After eating and drinking, Zhang Yi returned to his room. Although I haven't been at home for half a year, the room has been cleaned up, obviously my parents have been cleaning, and I can't help but feel warm when I think of this. Walking to the window, Zhang Yi looked out the window, and at this time he was already satisfied, and the mountains outside the window were like a giant dragon. When he wanted to go back to bed to rest, a bright light suddenly flashed in Zhang Ye's mind. The outline of the dragon frame outside was unusually familiar to him, and it was so similar to the dragon veins connecting the two worlds of the demons in his dream. Especially where the mountain range is disconnected, isn't that the place where Zhu Tianxi cut off the dragon veins in his dream? Since such a thought flashed in his heart, the more Zhang Yi looked at the outline of the Shenlong frame outside the window, the more he felt that it was like the intersection of the two worlds of human and demon in his dream. No matter, wait until tomorrow to enter the inside of the dragon frame and take a look. Zhang Yi no longer looked out of the window, and decided to set off tomorrow to go to the Shenlong frame to find out. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, Zhang Yi began today's cultivation. As everyone knows, when he was about to go to the Shenlong shelf to investigate, a group of people had already entered the periphery of the Shenlong shelf. Shenlongjia is a wild ecological nature reserve in the Dragon Country, which is divided into two layers. The outer layer is mainly a tourist attraction, the inner layer is a paradise for wild animals, and the inside is inaccessible and listed as a forbidden area by the state. Of course, the exclusion zone does not mean that outsiders cannot enter, nor how dangerous the inner layer is, but to protect the wildlife inside. The outer layer is part of the outer layer, and it is also a village composed of people who lived in the outer layer of the dragon frame a long time ago. Until now, the periphery has become a place where various hotels are located. That night, 12 people took the live broadcast equipment and various signal enhancement devices to stay in the hotel outside the Shenlong frame. They are a team, the main one is an anchor, and they are also a big internet celebrity with 30 million followers. He is Xiao Pengfei, an anchor who emerged from another star a month ago. Xiao Pengfei originally opened a Taekwondo martial arts gym, but because of the appearance of Bio Village, the people of Longguo began to pursue those ethereal cultivation methods, which led to the dismal meaning of the martial arts hall, and even many students dropped out of class, and finally had no choice but to close the Taekwondo martial arts hall. Xiao Pengfei has always scoffed at Bio Village and Inhumans, and now his Taekwondo martial arts gym has closed down because of the appearance of Bio Village, and he hates these things even more, and begins to refute the statement that there may be Inhumans in what gyms and deserted places on the internet. For this reason, Xiao Pengfei started to be an anchor a month ago, and the content of the live broadcast is to fight those so-called Taoist halls, proving that there can be no cultivation exercises and aliens in this world. The news about Bio Village is also apocryphal and fake. Xiao Pengfei relied on his years of experience in Taekwondo, and when he found a gym, he threatened to challenge it. If the gym does not accept the challenge, it will start all kinds of verbal insults, and anyway, it will not have to pay legal responsibility. The people of the Dragon Kingdom pay the most attention to inheritance, especially in a place with faith like the Taoist. After hearing Xiao Pengfei appear and insult his own Taoist, they naturally accepted his provocation. In this way, Xiao Pengfei successfully challenged a gym, and unexpectedly received a large number of rewards after beating the owner of the hall inside. Xiao Pengfei, who originally just wanted to prove that there is no oil cultivation method in the world, saw that he could still make money when he was angry. he was like a cat that had tasted a fishy smell, and he began to get out of control and went further and further on the road of fighting counterfeiting. Although most of the dojos said that they had no cultivation exercises and no strangers, Xiao Jipang still made all kinds of provocations, stepping on the name of the dojo and turning a lot of money. In just 1 month, he went from a novice anchor to a big internet celebrity with 30 million followers, and he made countless money. But in the past month, he has always challenged the gym in the same way, and the audience in the live broadcast room has long been tired of watching it, so he has set his sights on some inaccessible places. This place is naturally the Shenlongjia Nature Reserve. In fact, when he said that he was going to go to the inside of the Shenlong frame to find strangers for the netizens in the live broadcast room, he regretted it. At that time, it was just deducted, and afterwards I took out my mobile phone to check the information of the Shenlong frame, and only then did I find that if a person with bare hands entered the inside of the Shenlong frame, it was very dangerous. But if you don't go to the inside of the Shenlong frame, your fans will definitely drop a lot, and the corresponding income will be reduced a lot. For the sake of money, Xiao Pengfei gritted his teeth and hired 11 bodyguards to come to the Shenlong frame. Of course, even if he hired bodyguards, he wouldn't go inside. At most he would take these bodyguards around the outer layer of the dragon frame. There was nothing to say all night, and the next morning when it was dawning, Xiao Pengfei finished washing, skillfully opened the live broadcast room, and began to circle money. Phew. Good morning, everyone, where do you see me now? Xiao Jipang turned his back to the Shenlong frame and aimed the camera at himself and the outline of the Shenlong frame behind him. Yes, as you netizens said, my current location is in the northwest of Hubei province of the Dragon Kingdom, that is, here is the Shenlong frame. The last time I broadcast live, I said that I was going to go to the inside of the Shenlong frame to find cultivation exercises for my family, and the real man did what he said. For the sake of me working so hard for my family, is it okay for my family to give a wave of gifts? Less than 2 minutes after the broadcast began, Xiao Pengfei began to speak in circles. As soon as his words fell, gifts flew in the live broadcast room. 6666, Brother Xiao, a real man, if you say go to the Shenlong frame, you will go to the Shenlong frame. The Shenlong frame is very weird, it is said that there are wild people in it, Brother Xiao, you have to pay attention to safety. Sure enough, Brother Xiao is a clear stream in the live broadcast industry, and he thinks about netizens in the live broadcast room everywhere. I'm so excited, I can finally see the internal environment of the Shenlong frame. Upstairs, didn't the state release a documentary 2 years ago? Isn't it the inner layer of the Shenlong frame? Hehe, can you believe the videos sent by the state? Those are just what I want you to see. Yes, for example, the Bio Village incident, we also learned some things in the live broadcast, and other countries just don't say anything. Brother Xiao, hurry up to the Shenlong frame, my eyes are already hungry and thirsty.